What's up, world, internet, everyone in esports? How you doing? I'm sitting here with the wonderful PiG. Before we jump into this, though, I gotta give some dank shoutouts to Esports Heaven. Thank you, Esports Heaven, for helping to sponsor this content. It wouldn't be possible without you guys. If you guys are watching this video on YouTube and you haven't clicked through to Esports Heaven yet, go on over there. There's timestamps. You can look at any question you want in the appropriate time. And also, I want to do a quick shout out for my Patreon. If you guys really like this kind of content, you want to see more of it, and you want to help me out, check out the Patreon. It would be a personal favor, we'll say. Without further ado, though, Pigman, how are you doing? It's like evening for you and morning for me, right? That's so weird.
Yeah, dude. It's actually amazing that you've woken up early enough to interview me. So I should say thanks to you for being here, man. Because has the sun even come up where you are right now?
No, it is actually 5:45 in the morning right now. So, but really, man, the passion don't sleep, man. You gotta go where the passion takes you, right? And I want you to be comfortable and be comfortable in your questions and stuff like that. So, man, I'll wake up anytime you want me to, Pig.
Hells yeah, man. Appreciate the passion.
I appreciate the attendance. So, let's dive in here. Before we really dive in, though, I want to say you've made it a little difficult for me to dig up like really cool niche factoids about your past because you've kind of put it on display for the public in the Pig Daily 100. But there are a number of things that I want to expand on from that video, so hopefully we find some cool stuff that maybe people didn't necessarily know about. I want to talk
thankfully, not that many people have watched that video because not that many people have 4 hours to listen to me literally just talk about myself. So, so it's all good, man.
Well, however many people, hopefully we'll find some stuff for the Pig hardcores. I really like the video, actually. I think that the length is kind of something going in its favor. Maybe not for 90% of people, but I really loved the depth of that 3-part video. I mean, it's almost like a documentary or a really in-depth autobiography or something. It's really good, I think, personally.
Thanks, man.
So diving in here a little bit, you're a part of one of the most interesting StarCraft scenes in the world, to my opinion. You're part of the Australian StarCraft scene. You guys farm some of the best pros from Moonglade to Probe. You have some really cool tournaments like the Pro League that's happening down there. You have some of the most beloved talent coming from there, featuring yourself and Maynard, among many others. And you have some seriously cool grassroots events, including like the Pigsty Cup and Probe's LAN events. So for me as an outsider kind of looking in, this is so crazy to think about how this nation of Australia and this region has such a strong grassroots scene. Tell me, what makes the StarCraft scene in Australia so passionate?
You know, it's weird because we are so far apart. So I guess like as Australians, if we want to really get into something, we have to actually get super passionate about it and kind of make it happen ourselves, right? Like, for the longest time, it's like, hey, well, DreamHack's never going to come here. IAM's never going to come here. That changed last year and is changing again, which is awesome. But it's just kind of one of those things where I guess there's a reasonably strong kind of like PC bang and like, obviously internet cafe. I mean, I've been in the StarCraft scene so long. It's not like we called them PC bangs when we were kids, but I think just the generation that grew up playing, UMS, StarCraft and Warcraft maps, Counter-Strike and Dota in internet cafes. And I guess it's because there's a lot of people who are spread out as well. So I think we have quite a lot of a regional kind of lot of fans who watch regionally around Australia who, it's funny. I've met guys at events who are just like, oh yeah, like we have to buffer the VODs. Like we can't watch anything live, but we like meet up and we like buffer the VOD for like 6 hours so that we can actually watch a tournament cast like live, hanging out and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. It's like, it's just cool. Yeah, we're kind of isolated on our own. I think we definitely had a big kind of rut in our scene for like a bit in the middle of StarCraft 2's history. But like the start was just absolute madness. One of the first big barcrafts, I remember it was like 400 people crammed into this like rather large bar, but it was overflowing with people in Sydney and my city. I don't know. It just seemed to catch on, and everyone seems to love StarCraft. And now it's a smaller scene, but you've still got this surprising reach of hardcore people where, people will be like, oh, like League of Legends is really big, or Counter-Strike's really big or something. But whenever there's like a grassroots event, it often does struggle to actually get as many people down to it as the couple of StarCraft events that we run. So I don't know. It's cool. I think just StarCraft fans are their own kind of hardcore breed. And like most gamers, I think, like kind of wave with the wind like a reed, right? They're kind of like going from game to game. They're like moving around, and they like have short attention spans. And then there's like StarCraft gamers in their corner, and we just like, no, I've played StarCraft for 20 years. I'm going to keep playing StarCraft. Like maybe I'll play Warcraft, or I'll play a bit of Command and Conquer or this or that. But like, it's always like, nah, I like RTS and I'm sticking with what I like.
That kind of ties into one of the things that I had for later. In your PiG Daily 100, you talk a little bit about how during the Warcraft 3 days, you were a really intense like 1v1 type, and you really liked the 1v1 aspect, but you'd go to the internet cafes and everyone was playing Dota, and you were kind of disappointed in that. And you talk in this PiG Daily 100 about how there's no new trend where gamers prefer multiplayer. Gamers have never really preferred 1v1. I think that's interesting. So, like, I would just not assume that. I assume that there was a heyday for 1v1 with, like, Quake and Age of Empires and StarCraft. And you talk about how, maybe some other scenes are flitting around from game to game, from League to Fortnite to Pub, right? Do you think that kind of core 1v1 audience is more dedicated to their 1v1 games than maybe the rest of the gaming world is to kind of the hot, fresh new thing?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, I think it's one of these things where the scene started out more niche. People not that many people had computers. Not that many people knew how to use a mouse or keyboard. If you're thinking 90s, like 1990s, remember, this is when people literally couldn't figure out how to use a mouse or keyboard still. A lot of people didn't know how to. Like, if you go back, people were just dumbfounded by computers. So I think it's natural that in the early days of gaming and multiplayer gaming even being a thing, it was like, well, not only were RTS games some of the few games you could play multiplayer that were available, but it's just like the people that were playing games and playing games with their friends, which meant like figuring out how to put your IP address into your computer. Like you had to put your friend's IP address in and you had to connect to them. Like, if you got a phone call that would disconnect you, it was finicky. Think about how easy it is to play any game now. You just log on and you just click find match and it just matches you with someone from somewhere in the world. It wasn't like that. So I think it was natural you'd have these more hardcore kind of people playing, and as a result, that led, obviously the 1v1 scenes were strong, and maybe they were stronger, but as more people came into gaming, you've got more casual gamers. You've got less people who are actually finishing the old games. Remember, there's this whole thing people talk about, old games are hard, right? Games are easy now. It walks you through. It holds your hand. You die, you instantly respawn 2 seconds earlier because there was like a checkpoint or a save that automatically happened you didn't even know about, right? Like, and a lot of the older hardcore gamers lament this, like, it's really bad. Back in the day we had to actually finish it. But most people aren't going to do that. Most people aren't going to play the same level over and over and over again until they get it right. I mean, this is where speedrunning came from. Gaming originally was kind of the same process of speedrunning. It was just levels that were so hard and often so unintuitive that you had to just do it over and over again until you could figure it out, right? And you'd kind of memorize it. And it was this satisfying thing, but it was a lot about you putting a lot of work into it. And then you'd get this amazing release when you'd actually finish the level, or you'd finish the game, right? And most casual gamers never made it past the third level of Pac-Man, dude. Like, that shit's hard. Like, they're just like, this game's really hard. Those ghosts get really fast. Like, and I don't want to apply myself to figure out the patterns and come up with the strategies for it. So I think it's the same with 1v1 competition as well. If you look at tennis, it's just not as casual a thing outside of specific kind of, I guess, like rich white person cultural things. Like, that's what I see on TV, right? Like, I don't know many friends that play tennis, but I see rich white people playing tennis on TV and like TV shows and clubs and stuff. So I imagine that's actually like there are people that just socially play tennis. And I'm someone who grew up with tennis lessons. Like, I grew up with, playing many different sports. I played a little bit of tennis, but I think it's just natural for 1v1 competition like that to just be like, it's bigger reward, but it's also more punishing when you lose. It takes more effort. You're fully responsible for everything you get out of it. So it's naturally always going to be a bit more niche, I think. But I think people sometimes have the crowd effect. They want something to be something that everyone likes. And to be honest, I think there's very few good things which everybody likes. Adam Sandler's recent movies, case in point. It's like, and you look at the viewing numbers in these, and these are the most watched movies in the world. It's like, it's garbage. Because if you have to make something which everyone likes, it usually ends up being a bit bland, in my opinion. And that's not me hating on PUBG. I love PUBG. I've been really wanting to try Fortnite because I watch a bit of it and other games. But, I think if there's something which only appeals to 5% of the people in the world, the gaming world and especially esports communities have this really dumb way of looking at it. Where like, oh, that means it's dead or it's bad or it's unpopular, because everybody apparently has got to like measure it by how popular it is. And it's like, if those 5% of people are actually passionate and hardcore and they actually support and get involved in their scene, you have a thriving, awesome scene. So that's my view. I think people get a bit carried away with hysteria.
My big takeaway there is that you used to have to connect to your friend's IP address to play multiplayer video games. Is that that's crazy.
What year are you born?
93.
Okay, you're not that young.
No,
yeah,
that's like nuts.
You never had. Did you have a dial-up modem back in the day? With like ding, ding, ding.
When I was like 5. Honestly.
When you're like 5. I mean, for me, I was like 10, right? So I'm like about 5 years older than you. So,
that's nuts.
I turned 30 at the end of this year. But yeah, like if you went into the original, whether it was Warcraft 2 or like Command and Conquer Red Alert. It's kind of vague and fuzzy in my mind, but I remember you'd go in and you'd kind of have to type in their IP address or whatever, and it would display your one. So you could like create a lobby or something, and then you'd call your friend and you'd be like, this is the IP address, and you got to put it in their game and they can join your lobby or whatever. Like, and that was the only way to connect. It was hilarious. And you'd never finish a game because someone would call your home phone. So either you took your phone off the hook and your parents yelled at you, or you got interrupted halfway through the game and you'd never finish a game and you'd play it out in your imagination later because you're a little kid.
That's amazing. So we spoke a little bit about the Australian StarCraft scene. We're going to speak a little bit more of it now. You just recently returned from a pretty cool event. You're getting back from Maynard's wedding, actually. How is the newly-wed main man? How's he doing?
Main man, my 2v2 buddy, my casting partner, the guy who we often get mistaken for each other, even though you could not name two dudes, I think, more different in a lot of ways, even though we get on super well. It was great. It's cool to see gamers doing adult things. Every time I see like someone's bought a house or gotten married or something out of people I know through gaming, I'm like, yeah, we're real functional adults. Yay. There's always that basement kind of stereotype, which is steadily being thrown off. And I think it's just really cool. I think he's still probably on his honeymoon right now. So it's awesome to see, those two get married. And, I won't kind of go and spread the details of their marriage or anything, but I have never heard more StarCraft jokes in vows on both sides before. It was actually hilarious. It was great. I saw Moonglade there and Zeph for the first time in a while. So great chance to catch up with some of my Aussie buddies. And speaking of which, it is right now 7:30 at this moment. So I'm going to host the Aussie Pro League, which is starting, which I think has Moonglade and Zeph casting right now. I was sitting here during the interview. I was like, I gotta remember to host up that stream. It's awesome that we've actually got kind of like regular team leagues and stuff going in Aussie right now. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Like, just when I think of the Australian StarCraft team, maybe I'm a little bit utopian, or the scene, excuse me, not the team. But it's so interesting to me that there are so many people who rise through that area of the world in StarCraft, and it seems like there's a lot of close connections, like to share such a big life moment with a friend of yours who you met through StarCraft or who you know through StarCraft. I mean, I feel like that's a really big deal, and it's just so interesting to me that the scene down there can cultivate those kind of relationships. I think that's just the coolest thing, honestly.
It really is. Like, it's something which is special, I think, because We are so far apart, and it's the weird thing, right? It's like esports started community run, right? Companies didn't get behind it. The Smash scene is like the one which everyone's always like. You ever seen a scene where the company's like actively like kind of hating on the it's like, can you guys stop playing our game competitively? Like, you're making it look like it's not a fun party game. It's meant to be a fun party game, and it's like. I think we kind of with every game, even when it's like, look, we're doing WCS. You Aussies can wake up at 2 a.m. to play this like MLG run WCS qualifier and stuff. Like, we've always kind of been in our own corner, and I think Australia has a really strong sporting culture, and I think like we just have so many sports that have like hardcore followings in Australia. It's like weird. I don't think many countries have as like such a wide range, like just the number of types of football we have. It's like, okay, and we have like a soccer league, and it's all televised, and there's stadiums for all of it. And it's like, there's just this sporting culture. So I think it was natural that when so many people started gaming, people would start getting hardcore about esports and competitive gaming. And I remember like the early days of StarCraft, like there were so many LANs. And I was very lucky living here in Sydney because we had like, there's a chain of internet cafes called City Hunter. I don't even know if they're open anymore. Their marketing guy at the time, I don't think they even have a marketing guy anymore. I don't know. Chris, he just ran like a ton of LAN tournaments. And like, I remember it started out, you'd be like, oh, cool, I got like $50. And like, you'd always get store credit. So like the running meme, which I was hanging out with one of my friends the other week, and he's like, yeah, man, like remember back in the day when you won like, how many hours of store credit were you up to? Like 700 hours or something? And I was like, yeah. Like, and as a pro gamer or something, or someone who's trying to be a pro, and like obviously you'd much rather play at home, but you're like, yeah, I've got hundreds of hours of credit at this internet cafe. This is totally awesome. We just had lots of tournaments to play, and I think people, would fly down from across the country to watch WCS and stuff. And that's something with esports in general, right? You can go back to like Warcraft 3, and there's like people interviewing like this guy who's like flown from one side of Europe to the other. And he's like, I just love Grubby. I'm here to watch Grubby, man. Like, I love him. People are like, whoa, like, there's actually these hardcore esports fans. And I think that's what surprised me, is because when everything kind of died down a little bit, when StarCraft 2 went through its hard time about 4 years ago, I suppose, maybe 4 years ago, there weren't as many events in Australia for a while, because a lot of people kind of moved on to different scenes, and got involved in other esports. Like a lot of the key organizers and stuff went on to other games and started organizing other things. And it was kind of this lull. And I remember, like, for me personally, it was actually really weird, because I guess I just lost touch with a lot of the Australian scene for a long time. And I kind of like didn't even realize at first. I just felt very isolated. But when I started hosting Pigsty Cups like a year and a half ago, whenever it was, I was like shocked, because there were so many people flying in. There's people flying in from New Zealand, like Brisbane. And it's for anyone who doesn't know watching, it's basically just a barbecue in my house. And we have like 4 computers set up, and we have like the crappiest tournament you could possibly have with no prize money. And we all just, it's just an excuse to get drunk together. And we're both watching the games, taking turns commentating the games, and playing some dumb games. And I would be really adamant about encouraging people who hadn't played for a long time, bronze people, whatever, to come down, and I just try to make them play other bronze people. And like, I just rig the bracket and put it into like, these unfair groups, because I just want everyone to have a bit of fun rather than anything else. And I was just shocked, because so many people were like, yeah, well, I mean, shit, I still hang out on StarCraft every day with my clan mates. So people would kind of like come, and there'd be people from different parts of Australia coming and like meeting up in my house to drink beer together, because, hey, they want to meet up with their clan mates and their friends who they play every day with and they talk on Discord with every day. So I just think it's cool, the relationships you get out of esports. And yeah, that's something I think I value more and more as time goes on. I'm like, it's like actually really special, the friendships you make.
Honestly, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. I think that the Pigsty Cups are particularly really cool in the scene, because it's like a home story cup, but without all big esports famous people. It's like that very local edition. Scene. Sorry, what did you say?
The pleb edition.
No,
It's
no, no,
like,
no, not the pleb
yeah,
edition.
it's just yeah, it's like just very community, right? I would do Home Story if I could, but it's something which I'm really looking forward to bringing back, but I've been so swamped, so I'm kind of like in this constant phase for the last 6 months of like, yeah, it should be soon, guys, it should be soon. People keep asking me, when's the next one? I'm like, yeah, I think maybe next month. Can you do something next month? And I've been so swamped with all the new stuff going on for StarCraft at the moment, so I haven't had a chance to do it. But it's one of those things where I'm like, the next one, I'm just like, it'll be good. It'll be good. I'll have like everything will be even slightly better, and I think it's just going to be awesome to see everyone's faces again.
Killer. You spoke briefly there about kind of a state and time where there was a bit of an exodus from the StarCraft 2 scene. You've kind of been there like for the whole story of StarCraft 2, which I think is really interesting. But there was a time where a lot of personalities were starting to leave StarCraft, do other games, do other esports, and that was the time where you really started to kind of hit your stride and come up in the scene. I wonder, during this time period where you were kind of gathering traction and gathering momentum, but all these like day nines and grubbies were switching to other games, were you ever worried? Did you ever have any concern about your future in esports?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, I mean, it's something where I think I had a very lucky and disorganized transition from pro player into streaming and content producer, and I don't know what do you call, I guess just caster is like a good general word for someone that it's like part casting, part streaming, content production. It's just a big mix, right? Personality, that's kind of the word, right? It was a bit disorganized for me. I think the scariest moment for me with like my involvement with StarCraft, and I never would have left StarCraft, but it would have been the point where I went from, hey, this is a thing I'm trying to make my living and I do full time. It's my passion. It's everything. It literally was my entire life. Would have been the end of 2014, I think, because I was just kind of always dragging. I felt like I was always a little bit behind like the other kind of international pro gamers. And for me, the goal was always to be like actually competitive with the top. Like I never wanted to be like, oh, I'm the best in my country, and nowadays you could kind of do okay being the best in your country, depending on where your country is in the world. But back then it was like, well, even if I win every single event, like everything, I don't miss one, I win all the online cups in my country, it's like, you're not going to win enough to like make a proper career off or have enough fans or anything, right? Like the idea of the pro gamer dream was very much around like, I need to go overseas and be making at least kind of some quarterfinals in some really big events and getting lots of stage time and all that sort of stuff. And I kind of hit that peak right when, the scene just like didn't have as much money because like orgs were dropping off a bit and there was like so many pro gamers. It was like the bloated after effect of StarCraft 2 being the number one game for like 4 years. So there's like, hey, there's like 200 Koreans who are pro. There's like number 180 to 200 who you've never heard of who will still kick like most players' ass. And it's like the thing I try to explain when I'm talking to like casual fans on my streams, because there's a lot of new people who don't know about the history of StarCraft 2, and they're like, oh, did you ever think about going pro? And I'm like, well, actually, I kind of was. I never earned that much money, but like, and they'll be like, oh, did you ever play any like of the good Koreans? And I'm like, yeah, like I beat like every GSL champion at one point or another in a tournament, basically. Like, and they're like, we like. You weren't successful? I was like, no, I wasn't. I was really bad. Not really bad, but like definitely I never had like a big consistent push. So, it was one of these times where, especially the international scene, didn't have any support specifically. A lot of grassroots events weren't in existence because they'd been pushed out by how much content there was. They just couldn't get stream viewers, right? So there wasn't a lot of grassroots events bringing up players. This is the world out everywhere, basically. And then you had about 100 Koreans, I'm exaggerating, but a lot, competing in all of the American and European events, and a separate 100, this is as Kesper and stuff had swapped over, dominating all the Korean events, right? So you had the washed up guys who were still incredibly experienced and had massive swathes of experience dominating the international scene. So I remember in 2015, 2016, when things started to change and they said, oh, we actually need to support the international scene, or, all we're going to have is retirements, no new players. We wouldn't have had Neeb or Serral or any of these guys who are dominating right now if this didn't change. And you talk to the U-Thermals and the Harstams and all of these players who were playing back then and competing, And we've talked about this at events, and we're like, because there was a period when everyone hated on the new system. They said people are trying to push Koreans out, they're hating on us, and there was a lot of Reddit hate towards the WCS welfare system, and screw foreigners, they don't work hard enough. And, you talk to Snoot, and I think he's the best example because he was a god in 2014. Whether or not you like his style of how he played, he was effective. And he would go through these brackets where he would slay like 2 GSL champions and a bunch of like really consistent top 8 Code S guys. And he would get top 8 and win 1,000 euros for that performance. You'd be like, whoa! So for a guy like me who hit his peak at that time, it was kind of unfortunate. So I was very, I went for one last push, stayed in Europe for a few months, got as good as I could get. MC annihilated me at every tournament I went to until a little online cup, and I like beat him right before I went home and won like 100 euros or something like that. And I was like, great, couldn't have been in one of the dream hacks or like a Gfinity or something, could it? And it was really funny because, I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's done. Like, I can't be a pro gamer anymore. I just lived in Europe. I like use, I got like my team and like all these sponsorship dollars, like all towards like trying to like, just devote myself to the game and like, not just be like trying to stream and coach and do all these other things to make ends meet. And I still didn't really win much money at all during this time. So I was like, okay, shit, I have to throw in the towel. So that was a really scary point because the scene was in a hard spot. And I didn't live up to my own expectations as well, I guess, in terms of performances and stuff. I can make as many excuses as I want, but I was not good enough for how competitive the game was at that time. And my situation as a player where I never earned a salary as a player either, right? Like as an Australian, you'd put every cent towards actually getting a chance to go overseas because your flight tickets would cost so much. So you'd be like, I don't want a salary, I just want plane tickets. So there was definitely a point there where I basically thought I was going to have to throw in the towel. And I needed money so desperately to like pay rent and pay back friends that had borrowed money off to try and follow my dream that I was like, fuck, I need to like coach and stream because it's the fastest way I can make money without having to go to a job interview. And at least I can get a little bit. And I kind of fell into streaming a little bit because it kicked off really well with people like Base Trade and a lot of other people hosting me and kind of sending viewers my way for like a couple of weeks, which I think a lot of smaller streamers or people who've had that same sort of kickoff can empathize with how big Twitch hosting was for a lot of people when that first came out. So yeah, I kind of fell into it, and then soon after that also had the most success I'd ever had, even though I wasn't really focusing on competing anymore, and won a lot of money in 2015 WCS, and then also got asked to cast events. And I was like, oh, am I a personality now? I'm doing this. And thankfully this was really lucky because I wasn't organized in how I did it, and I didn't really deserve all that, but I was lucky enough to get that automatic, hey, you got put in this position. Now let's try and improve at these things and do it better. And it's been a slow road, but now in 2018, 3 years later, I'm like, I'm actually proud of what I do most of the time. And I feel like I do a pretty good job with some things. And I think, it's obviously a constant work to improve, but it's something which I'm like really thankful because I look back at it and I'm like, I was not organized in how I went after this at all. I was not as like planned and methodical as I could have been. If I could go back in the past, I'd give myself a lot of advice. But I'm super blessed that I kind of had all those opportunities to transition out of being a pro player.
Nice. Very nice. To the viewers and to yourself, we're kind of jumping around here a little bit in my questions, but I just want to ask,
I'm a rambler,
you're transitioning
so
really well into topics that I have, so I want to make sure that I kind of keep on the trains of thought, right? You're one of the rare StarCraft personalities who actually started working on a presence on YouTube as far back as 2012, which I think is really interesting. Before we dive into that, though, I gotta ask, why are so many of your videos exactly 15 minutes and 1 second long?
Is that really a thing?
That's a real thing, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. That's weird.
It is weird. I didn't...
Did you go back to like the very start or
the
something?
The very start,
like
yeah.
Wow. I don't know. Dot, my lovely girlfriend who used to manage me and was, she used to, she took over my old team, Exile 5 or something. She used to do a lot of the any nice videos that you actually see that are like well edited, well shot things that aren't just me on a webcam, that's her. But I'm pretty sure, I don't know, that just must be some random chance, man. Are the Illuminati in my YouTube videos? Something they're like doing some Da Vinci Code stuff? I don't know.
They're so oddly cut too. I don't know. Yeah, I was very confused looking at it.
Old days of YouTube, dude. Old days of YouTube. Unless you had above a certain views, you were like a partner or whatever. Like you couldn't. This is back when you couldn't monetize your videos unless you had a certain number of views and were offered a partnership with YouTube, which is very, very special. So yeah. So basically, you also couldn't upload videos longer than 15 minutes. So it would automatically cut your videos into 15-minute segments, and there was nothing you could do about it. So if you uploaded videos, I think you either uploaded them separately in 15-minute segments or it would auto-cut them. And I would often just cut from Twitch. And it would just be like, oh, that 2-hour VOD of like something I did split into 8 videos. And it's just like the messiest, most disgusting thing ever. But to be honest, if you're back looking at my 2012 videos, and I'm scrolling through now on my computer because I'm like, I want to find them. They're so embarrassing. If you're willing to watch a 360p video of me on my like knocking my mic, on my 240p webcam, like talking about some stuff with very limited game knowledge that I had back then, it's definitely a very different type of viewing experience. So the pig hat, oh my god, I found the start, dude. So embarrassing. I love it. Yeah, they're all 15 minutes and 1 second. Oh man, there's like XSplit on the screen in all of them. It's all single monitor and stuff. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I was watching one there, and it was like you were talking about like a Moonglade replay, and then about 8 minutes in, you were like, okay, we're done with that now. And I was like, why is there another 50? Like, why is this 15 minutes? It's so precisely cut. And then you go off, you get some food, and you throw on this like TT esports review from someone else's YouTube. It's the worst audio that I've ever heard. You come back and eat your food for a little bit, and then it cuts at exactly 15 minutes and 1 second. I was like, what's the grand 4-dimensional chess, dude? Oh my god.
Oh man, it's yeah, it was so bad back then, dude. It's so funny, man. Like, and then there's like a couple of videos which are like really nicely done by Dot, like her like actually filming like passion for StarCraft and small communities. This great video I still show on my stream once in a while from like 2013 Australian Cyber League, where it's like just like this sick little like kind of like documentary / after video, you know, just like got like quick like little quirky answers for like funny questions like about which units are most imba, and there's like the crazy EDM playing and like you know showing that, and it's like synced up with like T-Gun going like "Rrr," and like Igar's like roaring and throwing his headset off, like you don't know if he's like lost or won because he's Igar's. And then there's like back to my content. It's me on my 360p webcam like complaining about mules being broken or something, and I'm like
I love it, man. I love it. I think it's interesting how, I mean, she's all throughout the PiG Daily 100, and you talk about her kind of helping with YouTube, and she was a big part of X5. Dot, I think it's really interesting how big a role she seems to have played in your esports journey. Can you talk a little bit about her?
Yeah, I mean, we started going out just before. Actually, no, StarCraft 2 had been released. We started going out like end of 2010, and she always likes to tell people how I like didn't let her know that I like was obsessed with this game called StarCraft until I'd locked her in. You know, I was like, all right, let's like hide the whole I sit in my room queuing up ladder games all day thing. But no, she was like the super supportive. She was the first person I kind of talked to about, you know, trying to go full time, and she was like super supportive and stuff. And I don't know, she both saw that I was passionate about it and encouraged that, but also has been like someone who pushed me and helped me a lot. Because I am someone who is traditionally very disorganized, and I can work really, really hard at one thing at a time. Like it's not passion. It's not like hard work. It's like I can get obsessed with things / borderline addicted, and then just put an insane amount of effort into that one thing. And that's something which in the last year or so I've been working really hard on trying to like be balanced. But for most of my life, I've been like that. So having someone there is like actually like pushed me to be like, hey, like, if you're going to do this, like, let's treat it like a job, like, let's actually organize this and let's try to get the most out of this and let's try to push to achieve, your goals and stuff. Whereas I think for a lot of people, and it's probably the same now, but it was definitely the same back then, is like the people like going pro. They're like, oh, I want to go pro. And how many people have you heard who said, I wanted to go pro, I tried to go pro at this game? But especially, I know a lot of people with StarCraft, because I know a lot of StarCraft people. And then I'd be like, oh, cool. Like, so like, what was it like when you were trying? And it's usually like, well, I was in college, and when I wasn't in class, I'd be playing. And it's like, oh, okay. So like, how many hours a day would you play? It's like, well, it was really inconsistent. I was like, oh, they're living at home and they're trying, but their family doesn't understand. And they're like, well, my mom's like yelling at me all day in the background, so it's kind of hard to focus on practice because she thinks I'm wasting my life on this computer. And I'm like, holy shit. When I talk to people like that, I'm like, okay, like this is like the difference between having your family and friends understand what you're doing, what you're trying to do, and they're like there and they're like, you can bounce ideas off them and share your progress. And like, it can be like, you hit a benchmark, right? You get your first, 1,000 views on a video or something, and you're like, holy shit, this is so cool, right? Like there's so many benchmarks when you progress in anything, and if you can't share that with anyone, it's really lonely. And it's also hard to review and like redirect your efforts, right? But if you've got someone you can share that with, it becomes a much more natural way to improve. And I think with competitive anything, I imagine sports would be the same. I've never been involved in pro sports, but I imagine it's, from what I've seen, it's people who are, from when they're quite young, having a very supportive family who are like, yeah, we're going to like drive you around to your practice, and we're going to have you different coaches and your different programs and your different tiers that you move up while you work towards hopefully being able to go pro when you're 18 years old or 19 years old, or, step into that college level and then go pro. And then in esports, it's like, well, I'm going to like pretend to be paying attention to class to make my parents happy and kind of go to enough classes to not completely flunk out, but also try to practice on the side, but also have this side job to like try and feed myself. And it's like, oh, like as esports develops, like, okay, yeah, you are going to have some cases of people who make that work, but especially as it develops and it gets more competitive, it's like, it's going to be even more and more like, oh no, you actually need to like be properly set up. You need to like be like, okay, what am I living off? Am I being supported by a partner or a family? How long am I going to try? What benchmarks do I need to hit? At what points to continue going? At what point do I give it up? Like it's a scary thing because unlike any other job, anything that involves competition means there's someone else whose job is to beat you, and there's only one person that comes out the victor in any confrontation. So it's brutal as shit. Yes, there's not unlimited jobs in any career. Some careers are very competitive and hard, but very rarely do you have someone on the other side who's like, my whole job is to beat you at this, and if I beat you, like you lose, I win. Like, and that's just the brutal nature of competition. And it's why if you speak to anyone about, oh, kids like, I want to be a pro football player, and what will every adult say? 90% of the time, it's like, don't do that. That's really dumb. You probably won't make it. That's like not a safe bet. That's not going to be, good for you and stuff. Like, unless you're like really, really talented, it's not a good idea. So I think esports kind of, you should come at it with the same mentality. It's like, well, thankfully it's like, you don't have as much of that like physical predisposition. It's not as developed as regular sports, but like, you've kind of got to be organized and really like planned out in how you come at it. And you've got to put an intense amount of effort to get ahead of every other kid out there who's trying to be the best and become a pro gamer. So having someone that I could share all that with, and she could help push me, and I could talk to her and about it, and kind of like, even if it's just me talking like random jargon about build orders, which she's just nodding and like, yeah, cool. Even just being able to talk about that, I think is something which made improving at StarCraft and kind of building a career out of it a lot more satisfying.
Some of your most popular videos on YouTube feature you squashing, ravaging, dismantling, decapitating, and murdering Avalon. What are your thoughts on the NA Mechman, and why did you choose to feature him in these videos?
There is no one who will be quite as vocal while either winning or losing a game as Avalo. And I used to be someone who is really bad at like taking smack talk, and I would never dish it out as well. I was always like very like, almost to the point of meek. I'd be like, oh, good luck, have fun. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've always hated people that weren't sportsmanlike growing up playing sports. Like, you'd always be playing the sport and there'd be the guy that, give you an elbow when that person's not looking. In some sports, that's totally normal. But like other sports, it's like, well, no, you're actually being a piece of crap, or they do all sorts of other stuff. And I never liked that. Like, I never liked the like win at all costs attitude. I think an example, which I am a bit more brutal these days, I probably wouldn't have done if this happened today. But in 2013 at DreamHack, Todd, I was playing against him. That's why Todd likes me so much, I think, is because he proxy gated in what he thought was my main base on Star Station. He thought it was cross only. DreamHack had decided to change the maps or use their own map, which wasn't. It was just no horizontal spawn. Basically, he proxy gated inside an empty main base. Came in, saw there was no creep there, paused, said, what the fuck? This is the wrong map. We're like, oh, no, it isn't the right map. But I actually also was under the same impression as him that the spawns were like that. So I was like, don't worry. I thought the same thing. We're going to count this as an admin screw up. Let's regame. Even though we both knew that I would win the game 100% from there. I was also going 3 hatch before pool. So it would have been like the most hilarious, like greedy, like, because he would not have got there. That's a big map. Like even walking the Zealots over, I would have had everything up in time. And I would have gone through to the top 16 if I beat him there as well. I ended up having to beat Life to go through, and I lost to him in a very close series, actually. And I lost to Todd in the end of that series when I was way up in game 3 as well. So that was an example of me, I think, just saying, well, I don't think it's fair because I thought the map was like that. And if I was in his shoes, I would think that's bullshit as well. And there was a lot of players who were confused about this. I just immediately, like, I didn't even think about it. I was like, no, like, we're just going to replay. So for me, sportsmanship, I think, is something I used to take like almost too seriously. Nowadays, I'd probably just take the win because I like know how important it is to be a little bit brutal in competition. But basically, Avalo is a guy who would always just never shut up, no matter what is happening in the game, and used to be like really like this is before he was streaming a lot. He was just like very kind of angry guy on the ladder, and yeah, he'd just be a dick for no reason, basically. And then people loved it and people would go crazy. And everyone was like, you got to put that on YouTube. So I put the video up on YouTube and I was amazed. I have I'm looking for it now. I'm actually find it on my YouTube. People still watch it. I remember laughing because I still get notifications of people fighting in the comments section of this video from February 2014, Murdering a Villa. I believe this is the first one. It has 25,000 views. It's in like 400p, the most pixelated, blurry stuff. It's an hour and 10-minute game on Polar Night. And I'm like, people still watch this video all the time. And I'm just like, this is just insane that people are watching this because it's such bad quality. But people just love Avillo VODs. And the thing is, he'd get under my skin as well because like he'd be beating me in a lot of these games. And like when someone shit talks when they're beating you, I'm like, I get someone shit talking like Huck. Like Huck's the kind of guy before a match, he'll like drama it up. He'll be like, yeah, like, oh yeah, you suck, like you're weak, blah, blah, blah. He'll just say whatever, right? He loves the drama, maybe getting his opponent's head a bit. And that's like, I used to not like that either, but like, I'd be okay with it. Then there's someone who's winning and they're like, you suck. And I would just be like, oh, you're actually a piece of human garbage. So nowadays, I'm not quite as aggressive in my view towards Avillo by any means. But back then, I was like, oh, you're a piece of shit. I hate you. Oh, so every time I beat him, I was like, all right, new title, murdering, decapitating Avillo. Put this on YouTube, and people would just love to watch it. I had a mate over the other week actually, and he reminded me. We were having a beer, we were watching some StarCraft VODs, and just hanging out. And he was like, do you remember the time when you played Avillo? And he was shit talking the whole time, saying you would never win and you should just leave the game. And you could only win if you get a money fungal. And then you got a money fungal and all his ravens and won the game. And I was like, I do remember that. And he was saying this. He's like, yeah, I was the one who screenshotted every single one of his chat comments and posted like a full Imgur album of it on Reddit. And it was like, this is back when not many people really knew who I was or my stream or anything. I think I had like 2,500 upvotes and was like on the front page for like a week because you just had this whole story develop. And that's the beauty. Whenever you play a game with a Villa, there is a story which you can know nothing about the game and you will understand what's going on. He's the bad guy and he's being a dick. And then at some point, he always says something which is completely wrong. This is like there's like the recipe for an Avillo game. He always makes a statement which is either completely wrong or it predicts the future. So it's either there's no way he knows this. Bam, Jason boosts in just as his army moves out and Doom drops the main base in a Terran versus Terran, right? And he goes, map hacker, and leaves the game, opens the replay up, and then analyzes the spot where you can see in the replay Jason actually had vision of his army. He didn't know about it, but he keeps kind of like ignoring that part of the replay. And at the point, you're not sure if he's drumming it up or not. So it's just hilarious because you always have this drama because like, he's the bad guy. Often he gets ahead or he gets into what appears to be a superior position in his games. And then the good guy comes back and it's like a movie scene, right? The bad guy is like holding them down. He's like, and this is how I killed your father. And that's when the good guy's like, whoa, and like, goes Super Saiyan and like snaps the bad guy's neck and he's like, whoa, and rainbows shoot out and everything good happens. And that's any game you play against a Avillo where you win has that whole story arc, which we all know and love.
I gotta tell you, one of my most popular interviews is also with Avillo, and I think it would be the most popular interview if I hadn't interviewed Artosis like the week Pro League announced it was shutting down. I wonder too, like you seem to have put these videos up as a form of kind of public shaming for him almost. Does it bother you that these are some of your most popular pieces and that he can leverage this kind of toxic behavior into a career in esports?
I mean, that's going to happen anyway. I don't really care about that. Like, honestly, people like drama and stuff. And the thing is, like, yeah, I get people being like, oh, my God, why is Avillo on Reddit again or this or that? But it's like, well, it's fine. Just don't watch it kind of thing, So it's definitely something where, it's weird as well because I used to feel like it was full toxicity from him. And it was because he wasn't making a living off being an aggressive, angry guy. But Avillo's actually kind of become better in a way. In that sometimes I tease about it. Like when we're playing against each other, because he says things that are so obviously wrong now that he is playing up the image a little bit. And people say, it's an actor, it's a character. And it is partly now, right? Like a bit. It stems from who he has always been. And you can go back to forums from 2007 and 2008, and you can see it's the same character that it stems from. But he drums it up now. Like, he'll just say things like, you'll see him in any GSL chat, and he'll be like, oh, good to see innovations finally learning from my build. Like, Ravens are pretty good, And it's like, okay, like, like he's a smart, self-aware guy. So these days, like, I don't really mind as much because, like, he kind of, I don't know. I think I'm quoting someone else on this, but I do like to requote it. He's a caricature of himself in a way now. Like, he like plays it up so much now. Like, it's almost like you can't take it seriously. Like, and the thing is, like, it's kind of harmless in a way. Like, yeah, he acts like a bit of a dick, especially like when he's winning and telling people to get out. I still don't like that behavior, but it's not like he's like one of these like shock jock radio guys who's like, what about those immigrants? Like, they're stealing our jobs, man. Like, that's actually some stuff which can lead to a lot of hateful behavior, which can actually like kind of promote people treating people in a bad way and affecting their lives. But I think the worst thing that happens out of an Avillo stream is a few people who somehow don't realize that his stream is almost satirical in nature go on ladder and also BM some people and say, man, the non-Terran races are really broken and this game's really unfair and everybody I play against seems to map hack. But I think that's going to be a pretty small percentage of people. So a bit of drama, a bit of entertainment value. Why not?
I think he has strayed into the... I know he had a debate with Destiny a while ago about Donald Trump. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think he has strayed a little bit into that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I am opening that on my YouTube to watch later.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, moving right along. Part of your success on YouTube, and I guess kind of in general, has been your work with the PiG Daily. Tell me, why did you start doing the PiG Daily? What prompted you on this project?
So I think I told the story earlier, briefly, a little bit about how I kind of, washed up as a pro player a bit. I kept competing for a while, and I actually won and had what a lot of people remember as my biggest successes, the moment where I was like, "Roar," got really excited when I won, when I was like 3 Red Bulls deep and incredibly jet lagged at WCS against Happy in a WCS match. But after that, I basically was like, okay, I'll keep competing because I think I can still win some money, but like my foot's kind of half out the door. So I then got asked to cast season 2 WCS 2015, middle of that year. Thankfully, ESL hired me to do a lot of other events that year, and I got like a good kickstart into casting. And originally it was just analysis, but then casting, and I was really passionate about it, and I sucked, but they kept giving me opportunities, thankfully. I don't think I could watch one of the casts from back, and I used to rewatch my casts. And I still do. So I still do try to always watch at least a few of my games every event now. But I don't think I could watch the ones from the start because I think they'd be so bad. But they gave me lots of chances, and I was like, oh, okay, we're going content with this. And I guess it was around the end of 2015, early 2016, where I kind of said to myself, okay, and that's when Legacy came out, right? It was like end of 2015, start of 2016. So yeah, I was like, okay, what am I doing? What am I doing? Okay, like we're not really competing anymore. I'm not consistently making it to WCS, and I mean, I'm not focusing on that either. So why should I? I might compete a little bit, but whatever. And I basically said, let's do content. Let's stream. Let's commentate. Let's do all this. And I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, well, if I'm relying on this as my job, I need to be hired to a lot of events. How am I going to get hired to a lot of events? What am I? I'm an expert. I'm a Zerg expert. I like commentating. I like trying to learn hype casting and all sorts of other things, and I like other things, but I suck at them. I'm not a desk host. I'm not something like that. And if I'm honestly just the Zerg guy, well, what happens when they feel like hiring TLO or Snoot or one of these pro players who's got a bigger following than me, bigger pro legacy? Well, I'm just not going to get hired to events. So I was like, okay, well, I need to be the expert for all 3 races. And just generally, I love StarCraft on an intense level, and I want to be able to commentate not just the Zerg matchups, and I don't want to commentate from like a one-sided standpoint. Sometimes, and we all fall into this, a commentator will just talk about it from like, oh, I love Zest, so I'm just going to talk about it from the Protoss point of view and totally ignore the Terran one on the other side. I didn't want to be like that, so I think, treated all of 2016 as like a learning year, where I said, I want to get GM with all 3 races. I want to talk to a ton of the pros who I'm friends with and practice partners with and get them to teach me the details of these races so I can bring that to the audience. And I want to actually just kind of create enough resources, because there wasn't enough people creating learning content anymore. Everyone had just kind of given it up. So I was like, okay, there's so many people who are looking for ways to improve and there's no central resource. I want to at least create enough guides so that people say, that's the guy you go to when you want to learn about StarCraft. And that was my initial goal. And there was a big learning period where I sucked at Protoss and I sucked at Terran. And I learned it the proper way. I would just play like just Terran Marines and Medevacs. And I played just Protoss with this like really basic shitty stuff. And I was just trying to learn my hotkeys. And I do these daily videos and I was trying to figure out what the hell I was doing with them. I regret a little bit I didn't put more effort into learning editing and a few things like that, and doing nice thumbnails and stuff and all the good stuff which a proper real YouTuber would do. But for me, it's always been about a love of StarCraft first and foremost, and all of the other stuff comes second to that, right? So for me, I was like, well, it doesn't matter as long as I can get really good at knowing everything about these 3 races, and I can become that guy who people want to hear about because he's always got an insight from the pro player. He's always got an insight on what this little specific change up is in the builds. And it's not just, oh, the first 4 minutes of every game is banter time because we're never paying attention to what's going on, which I fall into sometimes now because I'm not doing the PiG dailies at the moment. I'm like, oh shit, am I turning into that guy who never focuses on the details and like I miss something big? So like recently I've been trying to talk to pro gamers again more to do that. But yeah, it's basically just this thing where I look back on a lot of those daily videos and I think they're really badly presented and produced. There's amazing knowledge and content in there though. So it's like, if you're hardcore enough, you're going to wade through, doesn't matter, because there's still great resources. But I kind of wish they could be more polished and stuff. But the thing I really value is that I learned so much about the game from them. The shows with like Showtime, hitting up like Neeb on Skype, and all these different pro gamers who were willing to come on shows and talk to me and explain their thought process and the details of the game, the Nurtios, the Harstums, the Snoots, the TLOs. I think it gave me the best understanding I've ever had of StarCraft, especially in like 2016, 2017 meta, especially. And that's something which I'm trying to kind of get myself back to now in 4.0, since the last series of patches have changed things a lot, and people have kind of understanding Legacy better. So I feel like there's been a lot of new developments in the last kind of year, especially with people practicing in Korea more. So I kind of feel like I need to get back up to speed a little bit, to be honest.
That's interesting. I think it's a really cool project and a really cool series. What is the outlook for the PiG Daily? Like you said, you haven't been doing it for a little while. So what's the plan of action? What's the future?
So I'm very focused on Twitch at the moment, and the impetus for that is I wasn't organized in my YouTube focus. Like I said, I was kind of more focused on casting and stuff, so I probably didn't monetize it nearly as well as I should. Doing smart things like Patreon, which you need to do as a YouTuber if you want to do well. Basically, I also wasn't using keywords as well as I should have been, and ads and all these sort of things. So basically it was monetized very poorly. I made next to no money off the PiG Daily, even though I was spending an inordinate amount of time making videos. And I said, let's try and do Twitch a bit more towards the latter half of last year. When I came back from the biggest holiday I'd had in a long time, I took a big break and I came back and went hard on Twitch. So for me, YouTube at the moment takes the back seat. So the only PiG Daily that I actually do is my ICFAR, I Cast Your Freaking Awesome Replays, which is just Fun Day Monday, carbon copy with more swearing as I've evolved it. It used to just be casting funny games, and in the last 6 months I've been like, it's a lot more fun if I just swear a lot, and basically I just was very inspired by Aussie Man Reviews, because I was just watching a lot of his view videos for a phase, and I was like, man, he can commentate on like the most mundane thing. It's just like a seagull eating a chip out of a garbage bin, and it's the funniest thing ever. And I was like, I'm so used to looking at the details of StarCraft, and sometimes I'd be doing this cast of this silly game. There'd be a bit of downtime, and I like wouldn't know what to talk about. And I also felt like, I guess, like I probably wasn't as good with all that downtime and all that sort of stuff. So I try to focus more on let's just make some dumb jokes. Let's talk about the units as if they're characters, as if it's like, Pylo the Pylon and that sort of stuff and all that. And yeah, so I like to just cut up daily videos, basically, of games that are interesting or good. So people gravitate towards fun content more than learning content. Ideally, you have a mix. I'm still known as the learning guy. So I do like to, recently I've been trying to put up a weekly build, or every couple weeks it happens, and I'll do 2 or 3 at a time, where I grab one of my recent replays, which is kind of clean. I throw it straight onto Spawning Tool, maybe write a couple of notes, very basic, very like minimal work, but you know what? Spawning Tool is this great website. It like grabs all the build order timings anyway for me, so I don't have to do anything. And then I just like, bam, upload the video of the game to YouTube. And realistically, it kind of serves the same function as those dailies where I'd like go through all the minutia. Doesn't have as many points, but I think for most players, it's like, oh, I wanted to do the Archon drop build. Here's a video of him doing it. And this website also has the numbers of the timings when he puts the things down. And maybe I write 1 or 2 keynotes. And I think for most players, that's all they really need to stay engaged and to keep learning different styles. And just by watching me play it out, have a bit of commentary at the end, which I naturally am doing on my stream every day, every game. I might like go through the replay quickly and point out a few key things. And I realize that this is like something I'm doing every day on my stream anyway. So I can just like, bam, cut that, throw it on YouTube. So my YouTube is this like backseat, very low effort thing at the moment. But I think it's actually got a really nice rhythm to it, because you'll have 2 days, bam, there's like these really trolly casts where I'm just swearing and making dumb jokes. You'll see a few other casts of like IEM replay packs or whatever that go up throughout the week, where it's just me doing a rather analytical, sometimes a bit fun cast of some pros playing some incredibly high level games. And then you've got me doing first person games and analysis as well. So I think the YouTube channel is actually in a really nice spot right now where it's been growing recently, despite me putting so much less effort than I was doing last year, where I was trying to do this kind of like canned, pre-recorded, sometimes even content where it was like cut in sections sometimes and stitched together. And as you know, as a YouTuber, that takes a ton more effort and time. And you can't really full-time do a YouTube video every day of the week of that quality and also Twitch stream, because especially not if you're casting events and coaching, which I do as well. So part of that whole trying to find balance in my life rather than just getting addicted and obsessed to things was like, you know what, let's try and streamline everything as much as possible. So the thing which has made my life awesome in the last 6 to 8 months has been basically only 6 months, 7 months actually, has been Twitch is my 100% focus. Casting as well kind of falls into that. Like as soon as I'm like, oh, I'm leaving home to go to an event, it's like, bam, studying VODs, thinking about how I'm casting, practicing how I'm intoning things and doing that sort of stuff. But otherwise it's just Twitch and a little bit of YouTube, a little bit of coaching, a little bit of all these other activities that I do as part of the community on the side. So it's kind of been a shift away from YouTube. And for a while, I think the YouTube content suffered for it. But I found a nice rhythm now. And it's actually been cool. It's been growing quite a lot. So it's really cool.
So you said so many things there. You said, I've got like 2 questions that you segue perfectly into. I have to decide now which one I'm actually going to go with. It's so hard, Pig.
That's what she said.
Good. No, I'm really proud of you for that. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, good job.
I'm an adult. I turned 30 this year.
Oh shit! Now you're segueing into that? Jesus Christ! All right. So, like you said there, you kind of referred to it. You've been streaming full time. You've been putting your focus on Twitch for about 6 months now, or actually, no, it's more than 6 months now. It's approaching a year. But in January, you posted to Twitter that in the prior 6 months, you'd streamed over 1,000 hours, which is such a staggering amount of time. Has streaming so much made a noticeable impact and a noticeable difference in your life and the way that you kind of go day to day? Or is it more like you're just kind of doing the thing that you would normally do anyway and putting it online, live stream?
It's huge, dude. It is. It's no small endeavor. Oh man, I wish it was as easy as just doing what I normally do. Streaming is hard. I always knew it was hard. I've been dabbling in streaming since 2011. Yeah, going full time with it. I remember I had the attitude at first of I was like, all right, well, we're gonna have to just work on endurance to a certain extent at first. I'm just going to do like weeks of like 12-hour streams. It's like, okay, 6 days, 12 hours. The next week, 6 days, 12 hours. Like, and I was like, okay, this is cool, because even though the quality is not there at first, I'm like, okay, I'm getting more comfortable being live longer. And then I think the big thing for me was my whole life as a StarCraft player, I've been, and personality, pro personality, caster, whatever, I've been overwhelmed. I have been trying to do this one thing I care about, but I've also had to do this and this to try and make that happen. Or I felt like I had to do this, this, and this, and this. And I've had this one thing which is pretty good, but realistically, that's not making a living for me. So I got to do this, this, and this, and this. And if I could just have my hand in one honey pot, I could reach in deep and get that honey out. But instead, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll grab this. Maybe I got to do this. I got As a pro player, it started in the early days where I was like, well, okay, cool. I'm like one of the pretty good players in Australia. I got third at WCG in 2011. I worked really hard for that. Awesome. Let's go. Got my first sponsorship, and it was like $2,000 Australian a year. And they're like, cool, you can use this to fly to a bunch of events around Australia and stay on people's couches. And I'm like, cool. Like, and you know, at the time it was exciting, but it's like, how are you going to make a living out of this, dude? And it's like, cool. I won my first ACL, 1,000 Australian dollars, which is about 750, 800 US at the moment, right? This sort of shit is not how you make a living, right? So for me, it was like, not just that. Let's put that in perspective. To get that $2,000 sponsorship money, I had to go and try and do interviews and sponsor products, and and I'd have to fly down to some bring your own PC LAN and show up as the pro player and like kind of like just do an appearance and play in the competition for fun just as part of my sponsorship, right? And it's like all these things which even as a caster, and when I started moving into being a personality, I was like, oh cool, like I want to do that, but I kind of need to stream because there's not enough events to cast. Oh, but I like should YouTube and try to become like the learning guy. Oh, but I can't really get money out of that because I can't monetize that. So I better keep coaching as well. And over the years, it started out, I loved StarCraft. All I did was coach and play 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, probably 14, 15 hours a day, many days. Not healthy, not effective. Anyone who's highly successful and is like, like an Elon Musk out there or something is probably like, that's like really stupid. Like, you're not going to work effectively for those hours. Over time, I got better at it. And I tried to, I remember a point like 2014, probably when I started having a day off each week where I wasn't allowed to do anything with StarCraft, and I'd still watch like GSL, but I wasn't allowed to like play or anything. And that was like, oh my God, I have a day off. Like, this is crazy, right? Because I was always like working myself to the bone, and it was not in an effective way either. I wasn't being that productive, right? It was just this like, oh, I need to work really hard because there's like not enough money and I need to like do this and this, right? And I think I carried over some of those bad habits when I started being a personality, because I was like, oh, well, like my stream isn't that big, so I better like YouTube as well, and I better like cast as well, but there's only a few events, and like how am I gonna like make a living? I better coach. And you end up doing 5 things half-assed. And you know what they say, man? Whole ass one thing. Get your big ass and slam it into it. Like it's satisfying because then you've got one thing. You're not overwhelmed. But for me, I was overwhelmed. I'm like doing a shoddy job at coaching. I'm doing an okay job at casting. I'm doing an okay job at streaming. But nothing's as consistent as can be. And especially when you look at being a streamer or a YouTuber, it's so much about consistency and creating a product, which it's not just about putting out a video every day. There's people who do a video once a month and are incredibly successful. Why? Because the quality is so highly consistent, right? But there's got to be some measure of consistency, and I never had that, right? Because I was like always doing so many things, and I was overwhelmed, and there was always something I was forgetting and doing poorly at the expense. I do one thing well, something else would suffer for it. So for me, swapping to Twitch was this amazing journey, and I've seen a transformation in myself in the last 8-9 months, however long it's been. Because I've said this is the one thing I'm focusing on. And if I can just do that well, that's gonna pick up. And it was this big, scary gamble for me where I was like, I don't know if it's gonna work. Like, what if there's just not that many viewers for StarCraft? Like, that Winter guy did it, but who else, really? Like, if you weren't big in the early days, if you're not like In Control or Day 9 or Artosis, like, what are you gonna do? And I had this, like, there's all this fear, right? And when I finally overcame that and said, no, we're just going to do this. Look, honestly, if I look at like how I'm supporting myself, Twitch is already a big chunk of that. When I actually like went down and broke it down, I didn't realize that because it still seemed like a relatively small amount of money, and it was. But I said, look, it's already doing that with like not that much effort. The other things are doing so little, like the YouTube, for instance. And I just said, look, let's just whole ass this thing and see if we can grow the channel. And immediately, within like a month, I wasn't delivering the most consistent product. My production still sucked. I was still struggling with a lot of things, but I had one thing I could focus on. And at the end of a day, I could stream 12 hours and I wouldn't focus on YouTube or anything else. I'd do my coaching during the stream and I'd say, and I'm done. I've done my work for the day. Let's like watch part of the VOD. Let's like think about what I can do better. You know what? I need to fix this up. And I could like kind of review what I was doing and kind of like feel like I was improving it every day. And that was this new change for me. Rather than going from one thing which I'd finish and immediately go into something else that I got to get done, I could like actually sit and think about how I could improve that one thing. And I think that's part of why Twitch did start growing really steadily, even before free to play and everything else, because I was just like, hey, I'm actually there every day for longer hours and I'm streaming more consistently and I'm improving the content. But I'm also improving, me being a little bit more relaxed and being myself on camera, and also not being as afraid to be grossly inappropriate at times, because Twitch loves, my 12-year-old sense of humor, apparently, which I think I was a bit more afraid to show in the past. So it was this cool thing because I just felt really liberated, and my YouTube suffered for a while. I was mentioning to you before, but I've now found a way to like do that with very minimal effort, keep my YouTube going, just kind of piggyback it off my stream content. And it's incredible. Like my coaching slides in there. I've got it very streamlined how I organize that. and Twitch is just like my main bay. I still go and cast an event once in a while, but I'm not going to kind of like jump up and fly off to like, oh, there's some random event in I don't know, Antarctica, and they want me to come, and I have no idea if the tournament's gonna be good or not. Like it's like I can actually say, you know what, my stream's such an important part of my life now that I can to some extent pick and choose events to cast. Like obviously I still jump at the opportunity to cast events whenever I can, but having this one stable thing that I can rely on, and I can have a healthy sub count and actually say, awesome, I'm not going paycheck to paycheck kind of thing and like trying to rustle up money for rent. It's just been this very like nice progression. And I think just the main thing is just not feeling overwhelmed and getting that feeling of satisfaction at the end of a day where I've done a good stream, bam, maybe uploaded the video to YouTube, and the day is done. It's just like, it's this different experience because like I said, man, I was overwhelmed for so long.
You said several times in your Pig Daily 100 that you traditionally really love playing by feeling and instinct. You give an example where you didn't like playing CS with a learned kind of mentality, and you got really mad at your friends for using like practiced peak strats and stuff. You say that you liked cheesing an SC2 based on feeling. Do you ever think to yourself, wow, it's really ironic that I'm sitting here known as a guy in StarCraft that teaches learned build orders? I find that to be really funny.
That is actually that's it, right? Like I guess that's like part of my approach as well with like StarCraft, is because like that's like my laziness shining through. It's like, like naturally I just grew up as a lazy kid. I think I like developed a little bit faster than a lot of the other kids my age. Like I just kind of like I hit my growth spurts younger, but I also kind of like was a bit more mature. Like I always kind of preferred hanging around like my older brother's friends a little bit, and like kids were running around watching cartoons, and I was like reading Lord of the Rings and stuff, and I was like, like yeah, like and that kind of evolved, I think, into me just being a lazy person for a long time. So for me, like with StarCraft, I was like, oh, I've actually got to like work to improve at this. But there's also so much content which made it easy to improve. Like you'd open up any stream and there's Artosis like explaining the game in this awesome way, and Day Nine's like breaking down the fundamentals. And I think it was the combination of accessible, like this is how you break down the game and learn it and improve by actually working hard, combined with video games, which I love and am addicted to, which helped open up the idea of actually improving methodically at things to me. As someone who was otherwise a somewhat dysfunctional and very lazy person, I was like, oh, this is actually really cool, because then I can be really sick like these pro gamers I watch. So you kind of see in the way I learn as well, where like I'm very methodical about finding weakness, because that's always been the journey for me, has been like, oh, I'm just going to like lazily just like do whatever comes naturally. So it's always been a process of like, well, I need to like very methodically be like, no, you need to like, no, you suck at like actually learning this build order. We're going to sit down and memorize it now. Like we're going to actually refine this and like iron out every detail. And you know what? You died to this, like this rush. We're going to like look at every single response. Like you need to remember that you need to build an extra 2 pylons when this rush is coming, because they're always going to snipe your pylons that have the overcharge on them, obviously in the past, or this is going to happen. And it was kind of like, part about just like wanting to not just be stuck at that same level as well, right? Like, I don't know, I just kind of realized that like you had to kind of create formulas in StarCraft as well. You have to create like set plays throughout the game, because otherwise it's just this complex, overwhelming thing. And when you get to a certain skill level, and you just will lose games, and there's only so much you can change your composition or your style. Sometimes you just need to change minute details to improve, and that's like where the real beauty of StarCraft is where you like make the tiniest change and it turns a devastating loss into a victory. And that for me was like, oh, this is actually really cool. Like this is art. This is where you're just adjusting things on a really fine-tuned level.
Your branding across much of your social media, if not almost all of it, includes X5, which is a reference to the team Exile 5, which I used to think was a reference to Check 6, but it's X5. In your Twitch description, and you talked about it briefly, you say that Exile 5 has disbanded, though. And I wasn't aware of that at all. When did X5 disband?
A while ago now, I haven't been really active as a player for a while. I was still representing them a couple of years ago. The last kind of big event I played at was IEM Katowice 2016. That was my last international event, which I didn't really have any business qualifying for, but I went and played anyway and got my ass kicked one last time. But yeah, I think that I remember wearing the jersey there. It was probably late of 2016. Maybe it was 2017. I don't even know, dude. Time is like one big vortex. But basically, Dot stopped managing the team, my girlfriend, and I already, as someone who's moving into content, was like not as involved with the team. I was like, yeah, like, I'll like have all your logos up and stuff because like Exile 5 was such a big part of my history. They were the ones who sent me to Europe in 2014. I had a really close relationship with the original founder and owner, Fries, who's just a cool guy. He's taken a big step back from esports himself. Yeah, like they basically supported me in a way which was kind of unheard of in the Australian esports team, and that like they sent me and Dot to Europe for 4 months. And, like we lived in the MYI house, and we went to like 3 Dream Hacks and a Gfinity tournament, and like. They kind of paid for all of that. Like we organized it and ran it, and it was soon after that Dot took over the team management. But yeah, it was a big part of that, and it was a team which I actually I guess had a real relationship with. A lot of the time you sign up to a team and it's like, well, they're just the guys who give you a keyboard and a mouse and a jersey and you represent the sponsors and you get your monthly salary, right? It's a sponsor conglomeration, but it was actually a team for me. I had so many experiences going to so many events with those guys, and I had heaps of different teammates over the years. My original rival, King Kong, well, not rival, he was like my nemesis. He just like beat me all the time. He beat everyone. He ended up joining the team as well and stuff. And I don't know, it's just kind of a special team. I probably will be removing all that branding very soon. Most of it's gone. I'm starting to remove it at the moment. I'm like making new graphics right now. And I guess it'll be time to change the Twitch and the Twitter handle soon because they're both X5_PiG. And I think it should just change to like something pig. I don't know. Maybe I'll change it to my name, like Todd and a few other people have done. But yeah, probably remove that and try to make it just like a more of a general tag. But I don't really mind repping them. It's not like they're an existing org that I'm not involved with and I'm giving free sponsorship kind of awareness to. So I didn't mind kind of leaving the tags up and some of the banners and stuff well after the team actually died down.
Yeah, I think it's cool that they played such a huge part of your story in esports. It's hard to imagine you wearing a jersey that's not black and red. For the Liquipedia people, because the Liquipedia still shows that the team is active and stuff, and I know this will be a point they want to have. Do you know exactly when the org shut its doors for the stats for the record books?
I can ask a friend. Let's just say the middle of last year, because it was much after I kind of, and the StarCraft division closed down much before that. But let's just say probably middle of 2017. I think is probably a fair assessment.
I got you, PD Bros. I got you. I'm looking out for you, all right?
1st June 2017. It's like, this is not a made-up date at all. It's like exactly halfway through the year.
What are your thoughts on the current StarCraft 2 meta game as a prolific analyst? We're coming out of some time where there's been a lot of contention surrounding the meta game. So what do you think?
I think StarCraft's in a pretty good place. I think the big buzz at the moment is all really around Terran and its consistency as a race. And I mean, there's been times in the past where Zerg had the issue. Late Hots, I think, is one time, especially when the Swarm host was removed, where everyone was like, really, guys? Like, okay, we get removing the Swarm host. It's an annoying unit, but like, Raven Mech is kind of disgusting. And everyone was crying. And there's always one hero of that race. It was Life at the time. It was like, I'm still going to make it to the BlizzCon finals. And everyone's like, God damn it, can that one guy of our race stop winning? Because everyone else of our race is getting massacred right now. And I think Terran at the moment is kind of having that with Maru. A lot of Terrans just cannot find consistency in Terran versus Protoss at the pro level. There was a really interesting discussion in the Project Unity house in Korea. Not sure if you caught any of that, where a lot of the Terrans are talking about how like they feel like Stargate openings are a big problem. And basically, a lot of it comes back to the Widowmine change. One of the things I would, at this point, like I've had some time to digest, and I'm very slow to come to any conclusions, but something I am going to be maybe making a video about in the near future is probably the Widowmine change. Basically, it reveals after it shoots now, which means it doesn't force detection. You just send a probe to it, and it just like reveals, and it's like, oh, cool, now we can kill you. So it used to be you had to get a robo. If you opened Stargate, like you had to be really defensive. It was really scary. If a Widowmine got burrowed, it could ruin your day. And now it's like, lol, I can just go Twilight or Stargate and just not care because Widowmines aren't a threat anymore. But not only are they not a threat, they're bad at defending. So to counteract that, Blizzard sped up the Widowmine production, 28 seconds to 21 seconds, I believe. So about 25% buff in terms of the production time. That's like nice for massing Widowmines in the mid game to clear charge lots. But like that's already kind of like this, it doesn't affect the early game. And it's like often I've been my thoughts, and I need more research before I say this definitively, is the Widowmine should just be reverted to how it was before and screw the game ending moments complaints, because I don't think it's really that bad. I think people will always complain about things in any strategy game, and Widowmine complaints, I think, were some of the sillier ones. In my opinion. So I feel like the Widowmine change is maybe a big one for TVP. A lot of Terrans complain about Terran versus Zerg. I don't really know what's going on with that. I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes it looks totally fine, and sometimes it looks terrible. And there's such a complex discussion, I'm not even going to go into it. But I feel like because we're seeing some pretty strong bio and mech play from Terran at the moment, TVZ is okay. We can't say there's a clear problem. So I think TVP is the main issue, and the other point of contention right now is the Raven missile, which is like, it can kill everything. It's a little bit crazy because it just fires so quickly, but it's so weird because you still need so much energy to actually use it effectively. So it's like this ultra late game. I've built up a lot of Ravens and kept them alive for a long time, and over time they become grossly efficient. But it's not just an automatic win. So even though Maru has looked really gross with it, I'm still on the fence where I'm like, this spell looks really silly, but Dark keeps running balls of Hydras and Corruptors into it. So it's always going to look a bit overpowered if you keep running balls of units into a vast AoE spell. And if you never use Infestors properly, which he doesn't, and if you keep letting 16 Swarm Hosts get sniped by Ghosts, as we saw the other day. So it's like I'm still on the fence. Like my inclination is that it is too strong, the missile and the Raven, but at the same time, I'm like I don't say that because of the pro games. I look at the pro games, and every time we've seen the Raven missile kill an entire army, the opponent messed up incredibly badly. But I feel like over time it might just be a bit too cost efficient. But players have a long way to go with improving against it. They're playing like shit against it, to be brutally honest. And that's why everyone's always like, oh, my favorite pro lost to something, it must be overpowered. And I'm like, nah, they played like crap. So suck it.
Wow, Pig, we sure do have some different thoughts on balance, huh? Wow. I never inject my personal balance thoughts because I'm Diamond 2. I don't know.
Well, we need more of that, man. There's always like the one guy in Twitch chat, or not really. There's always the one guy in the Battle.net forums like, well, I just think it's dumb they don't take bronze players' opinions into account, like with the balance. It's like game design, you can make an argument for that. Balance, no.
Oh, see, now I actually, we just won't. We can have this discussion at any point in time, other than right now. I think that designing for the lower league players is equally as important, so that they don't frustrate.
I think it is as well. I just think it's kind of different to balance, and sometimes people get the two things confused. That's all.
Maybe. Anyways,
there's an overlap. We can talk about it later.
Let's not fight in front of the children, okay?
Ree! Mom and Dad are fighting! Ree!
We're approaching like the halfway point of the year in the WCS season pretty rapidly, and it's about a half a year since the last big sweeping balance change that Blizzard put in And I wonder, this has kind of become a tradition in the StarCraft scene. What are your thoughts on these really big balance changes that do so much to shake up the game? And like, do you think they're accomplishing the goals that Blizzard is setting out when they perform these changes?
It's weird because I'm on the fence. Part of me says I'm with Nathanius. Nathanius is very vocal about do it every year. It shakes it up, adds interest, adds viewers, keeps the game fresh. Another part of me says it's already a hard game, and every time you change it, you outdate people's past knowledge, or parts of it anyway, and that can be a barrier to people coming back to the game. Like the people that come back after a bit, they're like, whoa, everything changed. I can't do my old thing. This sucks. I'm really curious how Blizzard think about that, because I think it's an impossible calculation to weigh up, right? You can't just let the game sit there. And also at the same time, it's like, I think I've moved towards the view of it's good to shake things up, just because I think it is good to have fresh things and new problems to solve. And I think there's a lot of players out there who are like Katz as well. Katz is very vocal about how his enjoyment in a game is in discovering and like finding new things and this sort of stuff. And like that's where he finds the enjoyment. It's not about refining. It's about finding new things, right? It's the discovery phase that he loves. And I think there's a lot of players out there, and this creates a new discovery phase every year. So I think I am on the side of we should probably do this, but at the same time, you've got to err on the side of don't just like make changes for the sake of making changes. Like don't just be like, well, we should make the Archon have Blink now as well, and the Battlecruiser should have Abduct. Like there's a point where the game starts to look like co-op or something. And Blizzard sometimes do this with like Warcraft 3, like Frozen Throne campaign and stuff. Like the levels just like get more and more kind of silly. Like you just like, oh, I got like 6 of these giant dudes that shoot 7 abilities and stuff. And if you go through this forest, you find a 7,000 hit point ogre that does 300 damage and shit. And you're like, whoa, okay. Like Blizzard like to kind of like add on these crazy things, but I think they're pretty sacred around StarCraft multiplayer, especially, and multiplayer in their games. So I think it's only really like the co-op and the single player where they're happy to like let loose there. We're going to just be absolutely insane with the mechanics. And I think that's a good way to do it.
So Pig, I've got a nice little stack of fan questions here. I just want to remind you guys, if I have announced that I'm interviewing somebody, you guys can submit your fan questions through like Twitter, Discord. There's a Team Liquid thread too, actually, that I try and remember exists and update. I don't know how many people come in through TL. I'm going to be real. But yeah, if I announce that I'm interviewing somebody, hit me up in Twitter on that original tweet, or you can join the Discord. There will be a link in the description. There's a channel for you guys to submit questions if you so desire, and then you can stay and hang out and have a chat. And there's a little community there, and it's pretty nice. So check all that stuff out, okay? And thank you for anybody who submitted a question. So from Twitter, first up, we have Nicholas Chaussois. I'm pretty sure that's actually correct in pronunciation. He's a very, very cool StarCraft artist and general artist too, I suppose. He says, I've noticed that Pig's casting style has evolved since he started casting. I'd say a more serious and sober style. Has it come naturally, or does he work on it on purpose? Does he choose to cast in a certain style, or do you just not even think about it at all?
Yeah, I think it's bit of both. I think I've become more natural on camera since streaming a lot more frequently. So I think I've done like a little bit of active work to just kind of be a little bit more focused on my interactions with my co-casters, which sometimes goes better than with others. You always have like more chemistry with some people than others. So I think that's been a big part, is like being able to banter. And I used to be so focused on the games when I'd be casting, where I'd be like, someone would be like, oh, they make like some joke, or they'd try to be like trying to make some joke. And I'm like, well, like, I know you're trying to do that, but like he actually went the gas before the spawning pool, not after. And like, I'm like, I need to talk about this now. And it's this like socially awkward. It's just this like, I'm just so focused on the game, I can't interact with the person next to me kind of thing. I'm sure I still do that sort of thing sometimes, because sometimes I just tunnel vision on the game. And especially when you're doing very long casting days, we all kind of have these weird moments where we just have strange habits, I think we do. But yeah, I think that was one I worked on. I think I'm a bit better with that now, just kind of having a bit more fun with the co-caster and letting the flow happen. And If I do see something cool I want to talk about, kind of storing the thought in the back of my head for a few seconds. I mean, that's cool. We can mention that in a few seconds. Artosis is someone I look up to a lot as a caster who I think says a lot of wise and smart things, but he compresses them quite well usually, and he says them at the right time. He'll let Tasteless finish his thoughts and stuff, but then sometimes he'll be like, oh, actually, we do need to talk about this. So I like to learn a lot from Tastosis, watching them. I think from when I started in casting, there's just been a lot that I've learned. I've learned more about the game. I find myself, because I'm on camera all the time now with streaming, I think sometimes I'm just like, I'm just talking about the game. Like I Am Katowice is a recent example where we just do 12-hour days casting. And that's like the stream is live for 12 hours, where there are hours before for rehearsals or getting makeup and hair and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, you're basically just casting all day, and your brain kind of turns to mush in that time. And there's a certain point where you're just hanging out with your mate, kind of making some dumb jokes / talking about games. And it's good because we can do that at IEM, Apollo, and everyone's very relaxed with us kind of having that sort of show. Something like a WCS or a BlizzCon, we're usually going to have, you know, a few more breaks and shorter days and this sort of stuff. And there's always a different tone for each event as well. Like at Pyeongchang, we were trying to bring it down to a more basic level because obviously it was the Olympics event. We were trying to reach out to the much broader audience, which was tuning in for that. So I think there's naturally like a change based on the event, the circumstances as well. Who I'm casting with, there's always a very different dynamic. So I think I naturally shift a little bit around, even within a single tournament, based on my mood in that day. But I definitely, after commentating on the stream and listening to people, Brendan's a good example of someone who has very good control of his voice. Goes like the way he intonates. He can say something in an interesting way without ever really getting excited about it, and he can make you interested with it. So that's another person I look to, and I was like, oh, he's like so good with his voice, and he has a great voice as well. So I try to focus on like, okay, it's not always about shouting excitement these days. It's more about if I can just intone in an interesting way, I can have a slower way of talking about things. It sounds less forced as well. A lot of people get angry about things being forced and stuff. But it's also kind of just more, it's very relaxed, but it kind of just has this interesting thing to it. I don't even know how to describe it, man. It's hard to describe it. Like I listen to a commentator who's really good at doing it. I'm like, that's the thing which I do more now. It's just more intonation. More voice control, more ups and downs in your voice, but being conscious of when you're doing them. So I think that's allowed me to add more of a story to the sentences and how I'm explaining the games without basically I'm just trying to explain the thing by getting out words really quickly and mentioning every technical point. Because before it was, I'd alternate between that and just shouting excitedly and just be like, the things are happening on the screen, and just repeating what's happening on the screen. So I think now it's like, yeah, I still do one or two of those once in a while, but I prefer to just kind of focus on how I'm controlling my voice and try to weave more of a story in a more conscious fashion. And that's kind of come naturally, but it's also been something I've been conscious to work on whenever I see another commentator do a really good job, or I listen to myself and I think, you could have said this better, or you could have said this more succinctly. Well, there's got to be a better word. You keep using that word over and over, which I fall into all the time. Thrust is probably the big one reason. I'm always talking about roaches thrusting into choke points or something. And then there's always people who think I'm trying to sound like I'm saying something sexual. I'm like, oh, I always get these tweets and I'm like, did I say that? I'm like, I think you misheard me. Like, I'm pretty sure I didn't say that. Like, wow, that's something I would not say on air at a big tournament. Like, so I don't know if people are trolling me or I actually just constantly say innuendos without thinking about it, man.
Also from Twitter, and you really just kind of got into this a little bit, but Gemini asks what your thoughts are on that generic caster hype, quote unquote, voice that
I saw this on Twitter before, so sorry for slipping into that one. Sorry.
Yeah, no. That's totally fine. Yeah, you did just kind of get into it. But I wonder, like, is there any more to kind of deconstruct there? Because it is true. Gemini kind of wonders what you think about the generic caster voice hype thing that a lot of people usually criticize for, and it does seem to be something that people bring up in the community. Like if somebody has a criticism for a caster, it's a lot of the time it's I don't like how they're generically hyping up everything, which I think is really ironic considering the days of Husky and Total Biscuit, where that was like really their whole draw. So what are your thoughts on that?
That's such an interesting thing, yeah, because it's exactly what you just said. And what it comes down to is how engaged an audience is. So for mass appeal, people like someone to just be shouting about things and explaining it. I know this because when I was a more casual StarCraft fan in 2010, I would just like any like British or especially the American guys who would just kind of just be like, things are happening and it's exciting and like, yeah. And now I listen to it, I'm like, yeah, I'm not really like that keen on it because I'm so much more involved in StarCraft. And if they're not saying things that are actually meaningful or whatever, I'm like, I get a bit judgmental sometimes, right? And so I think the more engaged you get, the more you seek authenticity and detail in the commentary, right? And you're more gonna like the guy who's got the more somber or technical analysis, the person who sometimes will just go silent for a period and let you take in what's on the screen and kind of add information where it's relevant. Whereas someone who's more casual really needs someone to walk them through what's happening on the screen, I think. Because otherwise they don't know what's going on, especially with esports and video games. So, and that's why we have this tastosis dynamic. The nerd who's going to explain everything and give you the details of the game and the technical side, and the guy who's going to explain it in broad strokes and talk about what's happening on the screen, which is of course tasteless. And that way you try and appeal to both sides. I think I've definitely been guilty of doing something of like the fake caster hype where you're just kind of shouting about things mindlessly. And that's different to what Tasteless does, right? Tasteless doesn't just mindlessly shout about everything that happens. If something's important in the game, he will shout about it and he will get excited about it, right? And because it's about how impactful it is on the game. So I think when there's like a difference. There's people that kind of talk about the basics and talk a lot about play-by-play and talk about what's happening on the screen. Sometimes people get angry at that as well. They're like, this is crap. But I think the more valid complaint, rather than a personal choice, is when it's like, okay, this person's actually shouting about a random Zergling dying or like an extractor that died that didn't even matter. Why is he shouting about this? Because what that does is it actually detracts from the story of the game, right? You've got a game and the commentator's job is to kind of walk you through that story. And whether it's a more technical or a more play-by-play style, that's personal preference. But the moment you actually detract from the story of the game, because you're not telling the actual story of the game, it's bullshit. That's where things fall apart. And that's where people, I think, are very rightful to be annoyed at someone who's fake hyping or, just has a very empty commentary. And that's something I have found myself doing in the past, usually when I'm tired at an event or when I wasn't as comfortable on camera and I feel like I've got to kind of play the part a little bit more, where I'm like, oh, I've got to just talk about the things constantly. Like all new commentators feel forced to talk at all times. And as you get more experienced, you're happy to just sit there and let it be silent for like 10 seconds. And this is something I think sometimes my co-commentators feel a bit uncomfortable when I do that, because I'm happy for them to finish a sentence and I'll just sit there for like 10 seconds. I'm like, just, we don't need to fill the air like all the time, because I don't think it's important to. And that's like something which I, as my own style of commentary, have been trying to push a little bit more, is like, we don't need to just constantly be talking. If you watch any sport commentary, there's long periods when no one's speaking for most sports, right? So I'm a big fan of that. And I think it's really good because it adds more meaning when you are talking. And I love play-by-play, but as long as it's done the right way and you're actually telling the story of the game, I think it's a beautiful thing. Hype, shouting, but you've got to be true to the story of the game. Otherwise, what you've just been hyping up ends up being disproved by what happens next on screen. And that's where there's a break between you as the expert who delivers the story of the game and what's actually happening on the screen. And as soon as that break happens, your audience doesn't trust you and it's out the window. And that's when you get a Reddit thread. This guy's really shit. Does he even play the game? sometimes it's not valid at all, but sometimes I think we've all had complaints on social media or Reddit or wherever after a bad cast, and we're like, yeah, I actually do think that was a bad cast. There's other times you're like, oh, these people are nitpicking like crazy, man. But there's always improvement to be had, man.
I think honestly, something that we lack in StarCraft 2 is that traditional husky hype caster. I think that a lot of people look at these moments that some people bring as hype and they go, no, this is fake caster hype. This is not important at all. I don't care about this. I'm like, wow, you're just being a real little bitter little shit here. I mean, this is exciting. Screw you.
Husky was awesome. Husky was one of my favorite. People used to hate on everything. Like whenever a game's like a really big esport, you get the biggest number of crazy people, dude. It's like esport is like just like it's like the banner of the just, I don't know, crazy people who want to be angry about stuff and hate on people and gang up on them and bully them on the internet. Which is the one thing I liked when StarCraft stopped being the number one game, is like a lot of the crazies left for other places. And that was good because we just had less people just hating on people for no reason. Like the number of people were like, oh, Husky's crap. He's just shouting about dumb things. Like he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like, and you could just tell there were people who are like, well, I like Artosis because he says the details. I like Day 9 because he's speaking about the details. And you're like, well, that's not what Husky's thing is. Don't expect that. You're just literally wanting the product that you get from a different caster here. Like that's just a dumb expectation. But I can understand when people got angry at HD StarCraft because he didn't know what he was talking about in a lot of the games. Like he was a lot higher level than Husky, but I think like he could play the game. Like he could like macro and micro a bit and stuff, but like I don't think he could tell the story of the game very well. And like that's why there was a lot of disconnect with his audience. Whereas I felt like most of the complaints with Husky were relatively empty because Husky didn't usually try to like he didn't jump to conclusions that he didn't know. He'd just be like, oh, this stuff happening, man. This is like cool. These zealots killing these hydras, like, well, like. And then he'd bring it back and he'd be like, oh, so like, let's look at the work account after this and like figure out what's going on. Because like he never kind of pretended that he was like a god who knew what was happening. So, all right, so I just cut off. But as I was saying, like, so HD would sometimes get actual what I think was, more genuine criticism because he would kind of misconstrue the story of the game a little bit or not tell it as accurately. Whereas Husky might not have been dropping knowledge bombs the whole time, but Husky was actually talking about just shouting about what's happening on the screen, describing, and he'd bring it back to the work accounts to see who's ahead or behind. Like he had this very basic knowledge of the fundamental thing in StarCraft, which is who has the bigger economy, and like let's look at the supply and see who has the bigger army as well, just in case that completely invalidates the worker lead. But there's a lot of casters, especially in the past, in the old days when everyone wanted to be a StarCraft caster, where you'd have every single person was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be a caster, and I'm just going to shout about the things on the screen. But everybody was like not clear in what they were trying to do, and they were trying to do analysis and play-by-play at the same time, and they didn't have the knowledge for the analysis, so they were just misconstruing. They were calling fights wrong, and that's just the worst thing you can possibly do is trying to call a fight while you're play-by-playing it. Because the best thing that happens is you call it correctly and you kill a bit of the hype and the suspense. And the worst thing is you call it wrong and you look like an idiot. So I think there's a lot of people who are just kind of like, we're just kind of doing this thing. They're like, yeah, I'm going to like hype it up and I'm going to analyze at the same time and I'm going to do this. And that's kind of where it comes from. And everybody falls into a moment where they're not feeling themselves. They're not comfortable on camera. And I've been guilty of it many times where I sound a bit inauthentic and I'm just kind of saying words, saying like really generic stuff, or I'm like shouting about something that's not that important. And that's something if I see myself, sometimes I've watched VODs, and the most painful thing you can do as a caster is when you're watching a VOD of yourself commentating and you're like getting way too excited about something really meaningless. And you're like, oh, I just like wasn't following the story of this game, or I wasn't telling the story accurately, because that's the worst thing you can do. You lose your audience there, and you lose your trust as an expert and the person who's telling the story of the game. So yeah, I think that's kind of my thoughts on the whole fake caster hype. There's good hype and then there's fake hype. And they're two very different things, but some people don't really know the difference.
Sheer Shaddai also asks through Twitter if you've ever thought or considered about becoming a coach, like for a team, like a team coach, like for teams, for pro players, which I think is probably a question that you must get with some degree of like regularity, right? As an analytical kind of content producer.
I used to get it a bit more. I guess teams aren't featured as largely in the current StarCraft 2 landscape. Like it's a bit more like, I guess, like chess or something, where it's like, well, it's like this 1v1 elite sport, and a lot of people are just like, I'm just like a one-man team who goes around slaying nerds and picking up checks, you know? There are teams, and we are seeing like the Warty Team League, and we are seeing different things pop up more, which is cool because I think it's just great because it adds that social and that team element, and it weaves a story, you know, and it adds more unpredictability when you've got teams playing against each other. You don't know what's going to happen next, who's going to come out, yada yada. Coaching a team though is something where it's like, I guess it comes back to like the splitting my attention, and like, you know, I kind of wish StarCraft 2 came in out and was, you know, all hyped and big and everything, and was the number one game a little bit later in esports development, because then, you know, that would have been a more realistic thing. But as it is, there's no teams out there who are like, yeah, we're gonna like, you know, we're gonna actually pay good money to get a coach over here. So for me, it would be something I consider as a passion project. And what I would see as it is, obviously it wouldn't be pay, it would be for my own expertise. It would be like, by working with you, I'm going to learn more about the game and understand it more. This doesn't really benefit me financially in any way or help me develop my career specifically, but it will give me more insights into the game, which feeds through into my casting, my understanding. Most importantly, feeds my passion, because if I'm like really involved, I've got that inside knowledge of a player. Like there's nothing like cheering for a player when you've been working with them and you're like kind of part of their team and you know their mentality, and especially when you've been giving them builds and stuff. I'm sure Jake, no regret, could speak to this a lot at the moment, where he's been, you know, feeding these builds to Scarlet, and he's seen her win at Pyeongchang using a lot of his builds, and she's been doing really well in GSL. She made it to the top 8. She's just made it into GSL Codes again. And like, I'm sure he's got this immense pride, and every time he's watching her, I'm sure he's on the edge of his seat. And that's something where if I could find a player who I think I could offer something to, in terms of like actually giving them something they don't have, whether that just be being kind of like a sounding board and like a psychological coach, or perhaps more actually just being like, no, I'm actually going to study builds and like tell you what timings you can take advantage of and do some of your homework and be kind of like a scout / play coach for you. I think that would be really cool. It would have to be with a player I like and kind of get along with. And I guess I'm a little bit distanced. I don't really have like any super close relationships with a lot of the top pros right now. Like we talk, I host show matches, occasionally get them on the show, but it's something I've been thinking about recently, actually, just idly in the back of my head. The cogs have been turning. So if the time's right, there's a player I'm getting on well with, we have a good connection and they trust me, then I think it's definitely something I wouldn't rule out. But it would probably just be with like one player, maybe two.
Transferring now to the Discord Denzian Daedalus asks, what was the hardest thing about transitioning from being a pro gamer to a caster streamer type?
Hardest thing. Part of it is, I guess, accepting that you get a lot worse at the game. Even if you're streaming StarCraft all day, your priority really should be on making silly jokes and having fun and keeping yourself in a good mood rather than just winning. That was hard at first, but I think over time it actually became easy. So maybe this is not really the answer, but I think it's a nice way to talk about the mindset change that happens. And I've been talking to a lot of my friends about this. I think a lot of people I know in the industry, as well as my friends, have kind of, I think, seen me probably change a bit. And we talked earlier about how, you know, just focusing on Twitch has made me a lot happier because I have one thing and I can see improvement and I can feel good about it, and I can improve it more and I can feel good about it. But it's not just that, it's also the nature of Twitch. I'm a full-time entertainer. Whilst I'm not quite a lap dancer, I'm someone who, I'm like it's like a mixture of being like a comedian and a waiter and I don't know, some sort of host or something. It's this weird amalgamation being a Twitch streamer, because you're doing a live show so many hours in the day and your success entirely relates, once you got your product down and you know what you're doing, right? Like for me, it's like, okay, I'm the StarCraft guy, I do this. My success from there relies purely on me feeling good and having a good time. And that's like the weirdest thing for your job success to rely upon. But it's also the best thing you could possibly have. So for me, it's been awesome because what this does is it incentivizes me to actually just be healthier and smarter with my day-to-day life. So at first it was like, oh, I'm not as good at the game. Oh, no, I'm playing like shit on stream. I'm embarrassed. Oh, this is uncomfortable. And it's evolved into me being like, wait, this is actually the best thing that could possibly happen to me. Because now if I'm really lazy and I don't work out for a couple of weeks and I start like getting unfit and then I like start feeling more negative because of that, that has a direct performance impact on my streaming. People will subscribe less. I will lose subscribers. Less people will tip me money because they're just not having as much fun watching. My viewer counts will go down. Whereas if I'm taking care of myself, whether it be fitness, psychologically, just kind of sharing my feelings with people I care about and being open and honest, working on things I like, not being disingenuous, all that sort of shit feeds into me actually just being positive and happy. And when I'm positive and happy, I'm having a good time on my stream and I see my sub count goes up. So what this has done is it's kind of life hacked my ability to actually take care of myself and like be responsible about living an intelligent lifestyle, which I'm like one of the most classic basement nerds. Like if I was left to my own devices, I'd be sitting in my fucking underwear on a beanbag in a basement, just sticking my finger, I'd lick my finger, I'd be sticking to my belly button, getting Dorito dust out of there. And I'd be like, like I'd be like a fucking disgusting slob. Like I'd be like, well, I know exercise makes me feel good and have more energy, but I'll like go for a jog once every 3 months or something like I'm just bad with that sort of stuff. So now it's like, oh, hey, look, you had a really good day. You got like an extra 10 subs today or something. It's like, oh, cool. You get this immediate positive feedback, which motivates you to do more of the same and to improve more at it. So it's been really cool to have this thing where I'm like, oh, going from being this very addictive gamer to being someone who tries to focus on having more of a balanced lifestyle and having a direct kind of reward for doing that. Coolest change ever. So very quickly changing from, oh my God, my MMR is not as high to, oh, this is actually the most positive change. So not really the hardest thing, but something which I thought would be a lot harder. And once I adjusted, became like the best part of swapping over.
I would like to personally thank you on behalf of the StarCraft community for that glorious imagery that you presented us with through that. Thank you.
Dude, the belly button Dorito dust, that tastes like fucking sparkles and rainbow dust and shit. It's beautiful.
God, Jesus, stop. No more. We're done. Oh, God. I can't even publish this now. Oh, shit. I'd like to remind everybody to check out esportsheaven.com. No, that's all really encouraging. That's all really happy stuff, too. That's good.
Yeah, I like to add a bit of the colorful imagery in there. Got to keep things fresh, man.
Moving right along. Zeldarin from the Discord, who's actually a mod, so shout out to Zeldarin. He asks, what is the one thing that new players can do to make themselves a better player?
Confidence, I think, is probably the biggest thing. There's so many technical things I could talk about here, and I'm sure there's 1,000 videos people will find if they're like, I need a technical guide on how to do this. If there was like one thing for a new player, it would be confidence to try new things and explore them. And I've been talking about this a bit recently on stream because I like to, whenever I learn a new game or a new skill, I like to apply the same knowledge I've learned from StarCraft with learning. So it's like this good way for me to try and remember what it's like to be a new player. So whether I'm learning rock climbing, or I'm learning how to play They Are Billions, or I'm learning a new workout or some other video game, it's always the same. Like learning is like this universal skill. Like that's like the gift StarCraft has given me, is learning how to learn. Once you know how to learn well, you can get good at anything. Like that's why if you get good at StarCraft, like you can just do anything in life because you've learned this fundamental, awesome skill set. And a big part of being good at StarCraft is being confident enough to just try stuff. If you just try stuff and are happy to fumble your way along, that's actually like what learning is about. But especially with StarCraft, it's such a vast game Players get overwhelmed when they're new, and they're worried about doing the wrong thing. That's the worst possible thing you can do. The best thing you can do is be confident to just try something. Draw some inspiration, whether it be from your own imagination. Maybe you think going for some of those flying mutalisks would be a good idea and you want to try and use them in a certain way. Be confident to try that out and experiment with it. And don't be discouraged if it doesn't work the first time. Be like, no, you know what? I think if I do that a few more times, I might get better and it might make it work. The ability to do that and actually not just like draw negative conclusions from every time something fails is your quick path to success. Because every game you play, every game you lose, you're always open to seeing new ways you can get better. And you're kind of confident to just try out new things rather than just trying to look for a cheat sheet to figure the game out. The moment you look for like, oh, I need a build to just win me games, it's not Hearthstone. You can't just get a deck and then kind of play the cards in a relatively logical order. There's so much going on in the game. You've kind of got to figure things out for yourself. And if you're not confident with that, and if you're too afraid of fumbling and falling over, you're probably going to learn a lot slower than someone who's happy to just run in, jump in head first, stack it a few times, hurt themselves, get back up, and figure it out as they go.
Shadow Adjutant, our own personal Discord Australian, asks, for those of us not gifted with Korean genes, how can we go about getting into the Australian StarCraft 2 scene? Are there even opportunities available to be able to work in StarCraft 2 esports from WA? And I don't know what WA is, but I'm hoping you do.
That's the Western Australia. It is the 50% of Australia that is on the western side. And there's this one tiny little corner where Perth is, which is the capital of that state. And that's like the little green bit, and the rest is desert. And no one lives there. There's just like mining. Like basically it's just like surveyors finding new resources because it's a huge continent. And they're like, all right, we're going to set up a mining town here. All right, we set up a mining town here. Till it mines out, and then we'll abandon it. So yeah, WA is like one of the more isolated places in the world. Australia in general is. Are you going to get a job in StarCraft 2 esports, from Australia? So the question was like work in general, right? Like just esports work to do with StarCraft in Australia? Or
yeah,
just
it was kind of a two-parter. How can you get into the Australian scene, and then is there any opportunity to work?
Well, right now on my monitor in front of me, below the webcam I'm looking at, I actually have ANZ Pro League open, so watching the local events is the best way to do it. It used to be in the old days we had a website, SC2C, which is now dead, for the Southeast Asian region, which was our region. I think generally make sure you're playing, just looking for other Aussies out there. So you can find people in Twitch chats of all the Australians, hopping on Twitter. I'm sure there's got to be Discord channels. I'm like such a disconnected dude from the Australian scene. Like I just like I know the people, I talk to them on Twitch or Twitter because we're all like friends and stuff. But I haven't kind of gone through the Discord transition that everyone's gone through. So I think generally if you want to like meet people from it, just kind of hang out in the Twitch streams, look for other Aussies there. You'll very quickly find other Australians. There's a ton of them watching StarCraft, and those guys can point you towards their clan mates or their team leagues, and you kind of get into it that way. In terms of like esports work in Australia, there's a ton. You will not get a full-time job that's StarCraft related unless you are doing your own thing and creating your own role as a content producer or something like that, or a top pro gamer. But in terms of esports, I don't know if WA is the place to be. I think Sydney is definitely the place to be if you want to go full-time with esports, because ESL is here. Gfinity is setting up shop here. They're going to be doing studio events. There's already a ton of events down at the ESL studios, which are down the road from me, not very far. But it's also much more expensive to live here and stuff. So I think you usually, if you want to go full-time in esports, kind of down the regular route, it's kind of like you start volunteering and adminning to run tournaments with like ESL and the orgs. You volunteer to get involved with teams, starting on the lower end and eventually getting through to the higher ones. A lot of people do a mix of graphics, social media management, managing teams, recruiting players, depending on where their interests lie. It's kind of finding what suits them. But it starts out just getting involved in your local scene, usually on like a semi-pro or vaguely competitive level. And once you know more about the scene from the people involved at that level, you'll kind of figure out where you want to go from there.
So this month is the StarCraft 20 anniversary, 20 years of the StarCraft franchise, and they're doing a kind of like a Twitter hashtag memory share thing, hashtag SC20, and you've had such an extensive career, and so much of it is displayed. So many memories are displayed in the Pig Daily 100. But it's been over a year now since that video was released. So I wonder, is there perhaps a StarCraft 20 memory that you could share that maybe wasn't in that video, or you haven't talked about, or has come since then?
There's so many good memories with StarCraft. I think if it's something which I haven't necessarily shared or I haven't shared very vocally, it'd probably be one of the small ones, one of the funny ones. So I'm trying to think of, oh man, like all the ancient events and just the hilarious stuff. Oh yeah, I've got a good one. Okay, so I think one thing which pops to mind, which is just was my first international event with StarCraft 2, which was IEM Guangzhou in China in 2011. And this was a different age of esports. And it was like packed into this anime convention. And it was like, I'd never been to a convention in China before, but wow, there was like literally no space. It was like just the mixture of culture shock, people randomly asking for photos because I looked quite different. But then wait till they would see Iagars with his big beard and long hair. I've never seen Chinese people go crazy. They're just like, oh my God, this guy looks so cool. Can we get photos with you? Just having that experience with this bizarre kind of culture clash, and then being like, hey, this is the Intel Extreme Masters. We're on this stage here, and there's Idra sitting right here, and he's like red in the face because he's just gotten killed because his Hydras kept getting picked up one at a time by Elfie's Phoenix, and Damaga's there like trying to give him advice after the game, and Idra's having none of it, and his face is like steaming red. There's just, I remember that being like the first time I saw the stuff I'd only watched on streams at home, and it was just this like magical, weird experience, and like getting to hang out with like Rotterdam for the first time. I just remember it being like so eye-opening, and spending time with all these pro gamers I idolize. And it was the first moment where I was like, I really want to go pro. Like before that, I was like, oh, maybe I'll like be a personality. And then after that event, I was like, oh, like I just want to do what these guys do. I looked up to them so much, and it was so cool kind of seeing these heroes brought down to a personal level and getting to interact with them one-on-one.
You weren't someone who entered the StarCraft 2 with an established fan base, right? You rose through StarCraft 2's life, and you kind of started hitting your stride after the peak happened in 2013. So as somebody who has experienced like the lowest points that you can in StarCraft 2 and then the highest points that you can in StarCraft 2, what's your prognosis on the content creation scene for StarCraft 2 from here on out?
Content creation in StarCraft is fascinating. There's a huge amount of people consuming StarCraft content. Like a lot of people are saying, StarCraft was dead. Gameplay, just straight up RTS gameplay, is still so viewed by so many people on YouTube. What's really hard is, I think, what you do with interviews and stuff, and it's so hard to kind of like there's so many StarCraft fans who aren't heavily engaged, and they watch on a really casual level on YouTube, especially. Twitch is a bit more hardcore that we've seen an influx recently. I think in terms of content creation, it's bizarre because like the right storylines can still bring out huge audiences in terms of interviews and drama and all this sort of stuff. But a lot of the time it's just like people like Falcon Paladin who just come along and like, I'm going to cast 2 games every day for 5, I don't know how many years he's been at. He's been at it for a few years now, and his channel's like steadily grown. And I don't know how many subs he has now. I'm going to look it up right now, but people like him have kind of come out with absolutely no background that I know of. And I feel like he's actually done quite well for himself. So I think in terms of either casting or gameplay wise, there just seems to always be an audience for it. So I think it's still doing pretty well. It's not huge. It's not a big like, oh, let's get in on the money. This is the new cryptocurrency. I'm going to be a guy that makes videos about StarCraft. But there's definitely an audience there. But as with any audience, it takes a lot of time to create enough of your presence before your shit just starts popping up in that YouTube suggested feed, or when people Google stuff, your stuff pops up first. And then there's this crazy feedback flow. You see people like Beastie Cutie just having enormous success with their YouTube out of nowhere. And you're like, whoa, where did this happen? And he hit the right point with some of his videos, which were like super casual, and he grabbed this huge audience in and introduced them to some of his other content and his more fun content, and keeps it on this very like engaging, fun, casual level.
So you're 29 years old. You're on the road to 30. And I'm positive that you're a career esportser. There's not a whole lot of doubt when it comes to that, I think, from my perspective, looking at what you're doing. But what is the long-term plan for you in esports?
I think at the moment it's to build my own brand, and Twitch is a huge part of that. People talk about diversification with investments. It's always a little bit scary to be so reliant on StarCraft and Blizzard. Because obviously, I don't know, maybe they don't like StarCraft. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Since I know the people at Blizzard, and they're pretty passionate. Like, you know, you can see it every time Mike Morhaime gets up on stage for a special event and says something about StarCraft. They're like, we love this game, or we're going to keep supporting it forever. But yeah, it's like it's something where I see myself definitely staying in gaming and esports. I think I have enough skills that I could branch out into other things, but I don't really want to do like production work or managing events that much. I'm sure at some point that might be a new challenge, but for me, I'm at a point where I'm loving building my own brand as a streamer. And in the next couple of years, I'm excited to start seriously branching out into other games, depending on what the landscape looks like. I obviously would stick with StarCraft my whole life if I could, but we'll see where things go. And I'm already going to start testing the waters in the near future with small branching out into different games and kind of giving them a go and just testing the waters and seeing if I can find what type of other games I like doing content around and what my audience and followers are willing to kind of transfer over to and say, yeah, I like that sort of game as well. Probably wouldn't be FPS related because there just seems to be very opposite audiences with RTS and FPS most of the time.
Interesting. You must be excited at the possibility of a Warcraft 3 remastered, right? Having been one of your first games.
Absolutely. I mean, it's scary as well because, like, I don't understand it on a competitive level. Like, I've been watching a ton of, like, Todd's YouTube and Moonglade's stream lately, and I'm like, this game's bloody fascinating. I played thousands of hours of this game, but, like, I never tried to improve it. I just kind of, like, did my basic stuff, and it's fascinating to watch them play because I'm like, man, I probably, like, would have got into esports if, like, streaming was around back in the day. Like, I probably just by watching people this good would have been so inspired, you know, because like I watch them now and I'm like, oh my God, the things they're doing are so cool. And like these ways of solving problems I used to have in the game, which for them, it's like, oh, that's just the meta. You do this against this. But I'm like, well, I was playing in a bubble in like 2002, 2003, man. Like I didn't know you were meant to do this thing against that. Like that's crazy. So for me, Warcraft 3 would be massive. Like I would definitely swap over to it at least partially. I would go all out with just trying to embrace figuring out the game and having fun with it, because it's just like it's that new challenge. It'd just be revitalizing, right? And it's something where I think the audience is the same for the most part. People that love StarCraft usually love Warcraft and vice versa.
What advice would you give anybody trying to come up in the StarCraft 2 landscape right now, as a personality, much less, I guess, a pro, because it seems like an interesting time in the life of the game where there's so much left to do, but it's so hard to get in there and do it. What advice would you give to anybody?
I think there's a lot of generic things which people who have been around media and gaming industry longer than me could talk about with, know your brand, choose what you want to do, what sets you apart, be consistent, try to create a consistent content or product, try to make something, like there's a lot of these like generic things, right? Same thing with any game, but then like, what about specially for StarCraft? Well, for me, it's always been kind of easy in a way because I'm like, well, it's always very much steered by what would I want to watch. And as someone who's obsessed with StarCraft, it's like easy for me to just like, it'd be really cool if someone did this. And I'm like, why don't I do that? It's like this very natural thing for me to figure out like what I want to do next to add to the repertoire, right? I think casting your own channel is an option. I mean, if we think about the big ones, right? You can cast your own channel. You can do a Falcon Paladin or something like that and build that up. What other sorts of content? Memes. The memes are sparse in this community. Definitely like a mixture. The question is, how do you create a personality? You can't be entirely about the memes, right? Like you can't just do a channel devoted to meme videos for StarCraft and expect like that just to be big enough on its own, probably. This is a really tough question, dude, because I feel like it's so based on like the individual. Like I guess in a way, StarCraft's such a hardcore game, and a lot of games are, that you can't just do it without already kind of loving the game to a certain extent and having a bunch of passion for it, right? Like you've got to like have somewhere where you come from. And I guess maybe that's the answer to the question. Maybe the answer to the question is you let your story and what you like about the game steer what sort of content you create and how you try to make your mark. I don't think I'm the best person to give the most generic advice, but like that's what works for me. So I guess that's the one thing I'm qualified to say is create the stuff that you want to watch.
You say throughout your daily 100, your PiG daily 100, you say more than once that your story in StarCraft is about getting punched in the face and falling over. And it's been a little over a year since that video was released. So I wonder, how have you felt in the past year? Have you had those moments of being punched and falling over again?
Yeah, I think it's never as crushing when you're not competing. I think there's still moments where I go through a tournament cast and I just do something really embarrassing, or like you make some terrible mistake with something you say. I guess this was before that interview, but I can think of casting the Pro League Round 3 finals just before the grand finals of the year, one of the last Pro League events before it all died. And me and Nathaniel got the final game, Protoss versus Protoss. I am Shanghai, the sweatiest venue in all of esports. And you had a Terran and a player who was learning Protoss, but didn't really have much of a mastery of it at the time, and got to cast an SOS game. So really easy to figure out what SOS is doing in games. Cue a proxy Templar Archive storm drop build, and me and Nate are just like, what's he doing? Why is the Templar Archives in the corner of the map? Is it an Archon timing? And it was just like the dumbest commentary from two people who didn't even know what was going on in the game. You have these moments like that where you're just like, oh, that was so embarrassing. But then you're like, you know what? Like just, you take it in your stride, you bounce back. I definitely think there's been less falling over. I've had more direction, but I've had streams which are just disastrously bad in terms of the quality of the content I want to put out. And it's very much about, just learning from those mistakes. But I don't even think of it in such a brutal way these days. I guess I've become weathered from getting punched in the face so many times and failing and falling over at so many things. I'm just like, it's just like part of the learning now is I'm like, I just take it in my stride. I'm like, oh no, that's just like it. You screw up a bunch of times and then you get better at it. And then you're like, cool, I'm good at this now. So that's just kind of the journey is, you make mistakes, you figure out ways to address them, and then you move forward one step at a time. And I think in the last year, I've been getting into a lot of like ways to improve every aspect of my life in terms of like optimizing just like what I'm doing day to day and how I'm like being more effective and having more time to just chill out and have fun. And that kind of feeds into productivity and stuff. And I think the big thing I see is like, rather than setting these like super lofty goals and expecting yourself to reach them, you can have those, but they're like the goals in the sky. And instead just always put a goal right in front of my face. So it's super easy and attainable. And you just like, oh, you hit that goal and you're like, cool. And you're motivated and you feel good. You have another goal just in front of you. And it's just about like really giving yourself baby steps in whatever you're working at. So for me with making my stream better, that's been the big journey. It's been about improving it one tiny little thing at a time. And knowing this stream's better than yesterday's stream. And as long as I do that, bam, over doing that every day for 8-9 months, you end up with a completely evolved product. So it's not about saying, oh, my stream's going to be the fucking best tomorrow, or my content or my play. It's just about being like, if I'm slightly better than I was yesterday and I do that every day over a long period of time, I will be the best, and it'll happen without you even realizing it. So it's been like a more calm stepping forward rather than a stack it down the steps and climb halfway back up and fall down again, which is kind of how I'd characterize my playing days a little bit more.
So that's it. That's what I had. Before we really clue up, I want to say once more, thank you to Esports Heaven. If you guys have made it this deep in the video, click through, go to Esports Heaven, give them the page view, even if you found this on YouTube. Just give them the page view because it helps everyone involved, okay? Also consider hitting subscribe. Hit me up on Twitter. Check out the Discord. And if you really, really, really want to help out, check out the Patreon and just even give me some feedback on what's there. Pigman, I cannot thank you enough. You've sat here and talked to me for an inordinate amount of time, and I think that's great, especially considering how much of your life is already on display in the Pig Daily 100, but you're so well-spoken and methodical and well-thought, so I'm really, really happy that you just had the time, and I'm really lucky that you had the time and were willing to give me the time like you did. If you have any shout-outs or final thoughts or anything like that, man, now's your time.
I'm just giggling to myself because I'm like looking at the time of this call and I'm like, you have to edit this bad boy. Sucks to be you, Cyan. But no, honestly, much love for having me on, man. Shout out to my mum for taking care of me and giving birth to me as a child. If you guys want to follow me, just x5_pig on Twitter and Twitch. Twitter's the social media I use the most. And yeah, you can keep up with me there. But thanks for having me on, man. And yeah, shout out to Esports Heaven as well for hosting all your stuff and helping you make all the content. I hope you keep doing it and find some great success, man, because I think it's really cool what you're doing. So keep it up.